this monkey for now, Frankenstein?
I know I'd go from rags to riches.
Why, a 4-year-old child could understand this report. Run out and find me a 4-year-old child. I can't make head or tail out of it.
Faravelli, you've got the brain of a 4-year-old boy, and I bet he was glad to get rid of it.
My fate is up to you.
Now, I'd be shitting my pants if I was you.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Your List Sucks, another episode of the Top 100. This week we're delving into the 50s. By the time this is done, it'll be halfway done already, believe it or not. Looking at that today, I was really surprised. It's going a lot faster than I thought it would, so I guess that's a compliment to you guys. Maybe not, who knows. But let's introduce the panel real quick. Last week's winner, I believe, was Cody wanted to get, right? Yeah, it was close. It was a close week last week. You guys were all kind of bunched together. Even Brian, bringing up the rear. It was tight. How are you thinking about this week's episode, this week's show, this week's list, Cody?
So when I entered this series, I thought I was going to win already. And then somehow Kirk got replaced with the cyborg Kirk that likes stupid comedies and likes Monty Python. So I don't know how this is going to go anymore.
Don't put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby.
He may hate The Godfather by the end of this. I'm not sure what's going to end up happening. But, yeah, it's going to be a fun week. I have some interesting takes. I don't know how much I'm going to actually talk because I have some movies that I know other people really like. So we will see.
All right. Down below Cody is Ethan. Ethan, last week it seemed like you're really starting to hit your stride. How do you think it's going to go this week?
Yeah. I thought that I had missed my chance already, but I feel like depending on how poorly Cody does, I could maybe pull it out this week. We'll see how it goes, but I'm excited. This is a good list for me. Like the closer we get, obviously, the more passionate we're going to be about our movies. So I'm excited to talk about them. All
right, next to him is Brian. Brian, you've been a trooper. You've been sticking it out every week in, week out, and I think we've got along better than we expected to so far. So
Cody's disappointment, apparently.
Do you think that's going to continue this week, or do you think this is when we really get rattled?
I think so. I still figure I have no chance of winning any week of this entire show, but I think this might be one of the weeks that you hate me the least. So there's that.
That's something to hope for. And last but not least, Zach Ford. Zach, I know you say I'm just pandering to you, but you've been close. You've been in the running every week so far, almost. So at least for second place, you've been a close second or a close third every week. Do you think you're going to step it up this week and maybe take this one?
He's muted. Yes.
Everybody.
Cody was shaking his head the whole time. I should have gotten that.
He's
muted. I think that this week is a real bridge of quality, according to me. We're starting to really enter the movies that I truly adore. A lot of movies that people would associate with me, which means it's about to get whimsical as shit, which means you're going to start to hate everything. But as it gets whimsical and gets my stuff, I'm living my best life, so I'm winning in my own heart, being the best version of me possible.
All right. Well, let's see how it goes. We'll get started. As always, we're still sticking with regular Your List Sucks rules. So for the top three, it'll just be me and you talking, and our bottom three. Let's go to Cody for his 60 through 58.
All right. So my number 60 is A Few Good Men. My number 59 is The Way, Way Back. And my number 58 is Warrior.
All you?
Okay, perfect. So A Few Good Men is one of those movies that I don't think I had originally on some of my variations, because I've always described this movie as a 4-star movie with a 5-star scene. But the last rewatch I did of this movie, I'm 100% incorrect. This movie is absolutely incredible from start to finish. One, it's a courtroom movie. basically. So that already like goes up like so many notches for me. Jack Nicholson, Tom Cruise giving fantastic performances throughout. The end scene is, of course, the crux of the whole thing that everybody just remembers from this film. But like, I love the Kevin Bacon and the Tom Cruise like trying to work through his case because he's not a trial lawyer, or he never gets through. He always settles out of court, and he actually have to defend this. And the workaround, and it kind of brings up like the facts like of like military law and stuff that you don't really realize, like chains of commands and how you talk to a certain person, and where like he has to walk a very thin line, even more than normal people in courtroom cases. My next one is the Way Back. This movie is a community like this. I understand why some people may not like this movie as much because it is it's talked about very heavily in this community. But this movie is just, I think, one of the best coming of age stories. I think it actually describes the like real American family. Wow, that was really hard to say. The best in this, because like a stepdad moves in basically, and like how he talks to his son, and like it starts right off the gate with like, how would you describe yourself, like 1 to 10, and he tells him he's 3 and he's not really worth anything, and like he has to like, and he finds like a real like dynamic and a real family in this like water park situation. Sam Rockwell is one of those actors that is absolutely incredible in basically everything he does, and he does a really good like secondary fatherly role in this movie, but also being like his friend. I think the ending is really good. I've never wanted to punch Steve Carell so much in the face in this movie. Like, he is a total asshole. But I think it's one of the best coming of age stories. And then Warrior. I think Warrior is one of the best like sports movies ever made. I think this is absolutely incredible. I think the dynamic between the brothers, and I love Nick Nolte as the dad. I always joke that I wish Nick Nolte was my dad so he could yell at me in that voice, because like it would scare me, but I would also just know he loves me. Basically, he does such a good job in this role of just like made so many mistakes as a dad when he was old, and the kids like never let him basically forget it, and he's trying to work on like fixing it, but again, some bridges are burned a little too far that it's hard to make that up, and I think it tells that story really well in this. I think the MMA fighting is really interesting too, but I love the brother dynamic, especially how it ends. So yeah, Warrior's my 58.
Okay, let me go back on these Few Good Men. I would say I went back and rewatched this. I've always had, I know it's kind of infamous, my rating of this. I've had it pretty low. I went back and watched it. I think you were right the first time. It's a good movie with a great scene at the end. And that scene at the end is so fantastic. I'll talk about that in a minute. But I think the rest of the movie is good, and it falters a little bit. Like I don't think Tom Cruise's performance is fantastic the whole way through. Nicholson's great, but he's not. I didn't realize, it's been so long since this. I didn't realize he's only in like 3 scenes. Like, he's barely in this movie at all. And the movie could definitely use some more of him. But Kevin Pollak's really good, and I really like him in this. And yeah, but that last scene is just so good. Just the chess game of, him deciding whether or not he's going to go, how far he's going to push him, if he's going to go for it, and just all the moving parts and the different things happening, like how Nicholson pisses off the judge, and that kind of impacts how everything moves forward from there. And just a whole bunch of other things like that. So that last scene is great. And, it gets all the praise it deserves. Rest of the movie, some of the dialogue, like that scene where he's, where Cruise is flipped out. He's like, what do we have for the losers? Like, some of that dialogue is just not as crisp as it could be.
You're a shitty softball player. Okay.
But, no, overall, I mean, yeah, my rating, I didn't log it yet because I don't want to give anything away, but my rating for this definitely went up on this recent rewatch. But yeah, like I said, it's good. But I think it's just that one great scene at the end that really carries it. The Way Back, I love this movie. I think this is one of those movies where it's this community movie, but for a reason, because I think we all really like it. Like, nobody's, for the most part, annoyed anybody with it, because everybody finds something they like in this movie. Yeah, Carell's great, and it's a huge departure for him. You never see him play a character like this. Just, I mean, Michael Scott was ignorantly stupid, but just see somebody him play somebody mean is weird. And Simon Rockwell, yeah, like you said, he's just the best thing in anything he's in, and this is a perfect role for him. So that's a really good movie, really good pick. And Warrior, I really like Warrior. Just the family dynamics really good, like you said, with Nick Nolte and the brothers, and trying to overcome that history. And again, it's one of those things where the best sports movies, like the sport is a metaphor for life, and I think they do a really good job with that. Plus, this is a Pittsburgh movie, Pittsburgh and Philadelphia actually. But a lot of it takes place in Pittsburgh, so you always get points for that. But yeah,
I knew what I was doing.
3 solid picks there, and now let's move on to Ethan for his bottom 3.
All right. My number 60 is the original The Day the Earth Stood Still, 1951. Yeah, not a chance, Cody. My number 59 is Being John Malkovich. And my 58 is Chungking Express. All right. So, The Day the Earth Stood Still. This movie is one of those sci-fi movies that just brilliantly does a slow burn, not like realistic, but like a slightly realistic approach to an alien, not invasion, but an alien landing, right? Sort of how Arrival tackles it. An alien named Klaatu lands on Earth, and he comes in peace, and almost immediately the U.S. government, the army, shoots him. And like he was like, "What are you doing?" Like, I was just here to be peaceful. He brings this giant like robot thing named Gort, and he basically tells the Earth, he says, I need to speak to all of your leaders at once, because if you guys cannot be peaceful together, Earth will be eliminated. And for a movie that was made in the 50s, it is so insanely relevant to today, because the world leaders obviously refuse to get together. They will not comply, even if they're faced with complete destruction. It's a movie that like really just emphasizes like how important it is for world peace, but like not in a way that hits you over the head. It's just kind of like if you're presented with death, which you really are, and you can't just make that simple choice to get together and just work things out. The most important man on the earth in the eyes of Klaatu is a scientist who he feels he can work with on this, and it's just like it's such a great movie to watch. It's a little it's got a little bit of that 50s like thriller vibe to it, but it's mostly just like about humanity and through the lens of this interesting alien story. Yeah, it's fantastic. My number 59, Being John Malkovich. People in this community, I think, probably know that I am a little bit of a fan of Charlie Kaufman. I think he's a pretty good writer, and by pretty good, I think he's probably like the best screenwriter alive. I love his movies. I'm all about high concept movies. We know this, and this movie has a really, really high concept. If you crawl through a certain tunnel in a building on the 7.5 floor, you end up in John Malkovich's brain for like 5 minutes or whatever. You get to just be in his mind. And like that's like one of the craziest ideas ever. This is Charlie Kaufman's first movie, Spike Jonze's first movie. Spike Jonze is also one of my favorite directors. It's so stylistically shot. The acting is so weird and off, but like in a really funny way. John Cusack is this like crazy like puppeteer. John Malkovich as like a heightened version of himself. This movie is just like tackling all these themes of like what it means to be like, what is the self, and like what does it mean to be controlled, and like all this crazy stuff that's tackled in it through this like insane premise. That it's really funny. It's kind of dark in a lot of ways, and it just kind of comes together in this insane ending that I think is fantastic. I want to see Charlie Kaufman's movies until I die. And then my number 58, Chungking Express. Wong Kar-wai is a master filmmaker. He was editing an epic war movie, and he was like getting lost in it. He couldn't figure it out. So he just decided to, in like 2 months, make one of the best movies like ever. He was like, yeah, I'll just make a small little movie about people and love and misconnections in Hong Kong, and it'll become this, whatever. And it's incredible. It's about, there's these 2 segments, basically. The first half of the movie, second half of the movie. Each one is about 2 people falling or not falling in love. So it's just very contemplative. It's very much about human connection and what that means. And the music in this movie, like it's some of the best needle drops you'll ever hear. Anyone who's seen this movie knows exactly what two songs I'm talking about. Tony Leung as a cop and Faye Wong as this woman who works at this food place that he goes to have such insane chemistry, and it's so fun to watch her and him interact. And there's a lot of different perspectives you get and things that I won't say, so you can just watch it and enjoy for yourself. But there's also a scene in this movie where Faye Wong covers Dreams by the Cranberries, and she dances to it in a scene, and it's one of the best things you'll ever see in your life. This is a great movie. You should all watch it.
All right. Day There Stood Still. That is a great pick. I'm a big fan of this movie. Yeah, like you said, it's really relevant and it's just very modern for 50s. You know, when you think of it, this is the era of like drive-in alien movies where it's just like, you know, space invaders and, you know, them blowing everything up and then being the big monster. This one's a real thinker for that era. And like you said, just that idea that that character who's so peaceful and, you know, he's nonviolent, but at the same time, he's threatening to destroy the world is just so interesting. Like just that idea of, you know, thinking so much bigger than just our planet. And just the special effects, like for the 50s, like the Gort design and the spaceship and everything, it's like the best possible episode of Twilight Zone. And I love the Twilight Zone. So that's a compliment coming from me. But yeah, I really like that movie. Being John Malkovich, I rewatched last week for the first time, you know, maybe since it came out. I hadn't seen it in a while. Forgot how bonkers this movie was, you know, aside from just like the basic premise, which is crazy. But just like how funny it is and how what kind of wacky and just like the different characters and everything. I really enjoyed it. I had fun with it. It gets a little like darker at the end, of course. But just the different, like I love the boss character and just how ridiculous he is. I love watching Cody wants to talk so bad now. Love watching his face. But no, Being John Malkovich is good. And Chunky Express, this is one I need to rewatch. I watched this when I first got Criterion Channel, but I was plowing through like a bunch of like non-English language movies. So Love and Blend Together. I think the one story was with the cop, right? And
yeah, that's the second one. Yeah.
And then the first one is the girl that works at like the counter, like the diner, right?
The cop and the girl at the counter are the same story. They're in the second part.
Okay, that's
she's like in the first part of she's in both parts.
Yeah, I like the first story. I think better than the second one, but they're both pretty good. But I do have to go back and watch it because, like I said, it's been a while since I watched it. I was watching a ton of stuff then, so I kind of missed it. I wanted to rewatch it for this episode. I just didn't have time. But another 3 good picks. So let's move on to Brian and go through your start with your number 60.
All right, my number 60 is The Nice Guys. My number 59 is Kick-Ass. And my number 58 is The Usual Suspects. All right, so The Nice Guys. The Nice Guys is, well, for Paul Oyama in the chat, another movie prominently featuring Yoo-Hoo. So you can add that to your list. Maybe that'll be tonight's penis count. I don't know. The Nice Guys. Shane Black is one of my favorite writers. I really like the way he writes, especially dialogue. And then he's got into directing with mostly good results. Now, like Iron Man 3, I like a lot more than a lot of people. Predator, a lot of people, the Predator, a lot of people didn't like, but that was a lot of studio interference, kind of changed everything he had there. But when he gets to do his own thing, like he's not dealing with somebody else's sandbox, when he's writing his own movies, he's just a lot of fun. And this movie was just a ton of fun. I mean, Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling and their comedic abilities here was just a revelation to me. I mean, they've both been in comedies before, but not kind of this style of kind of a little more wacky comedy. And everything from just the facial expressions that Ryan Gosling gives in certain scenes to some of the like nonsensical violence that actually becomes comedic, and the whole plot. Now the plot's like any Shane Black movie gets kind of convoluted, but the plot's just kind of secondary. It's just kind of a modern noir tale set in the 70s here, but it's kind of a modern noir. But it's all about the characters, and he writes great characters and great dialogue, and I just really enjoy that movie. Kick-Ass. Kick-Ass came out. I mean, this is like the pre-Deadpool era. So, I mean, most of your comic book movies were still, just made for the whole family, or they're relatively clean. Kick-Ass kind of came out and said, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to make a super violent movie. It's not going to be censored for a PG-13 rating. Matthew Vaughn does a great job. I think the writing is. This is one where the source material. It's actually very, very faithful to the source material. If you've ever read the comic or graphic novel. and I thought they did a great job of translating it here. Aaron Taylor Johnson does a great job in the lead. Chloe Grace Moretz kind of broke through this. I don't think she's ever really lived up to her potential that she showed here when she was still very young, but she was great. And of course, Mark Strong makes a great villain. He's good in everything he does. It's got a great soundtrack. You talk about some needle drops, like some of those, like that hallway battle scene where Hit Girl gets to go off. It's got some great music to it as well. The Usual Suspects. This was the first movie, I think the first movie by Bryan Singer, and it was his first major release, and the first movie written by Christopher McQuarrie, who of course has gone on to do great directing of his own. This is Bryan Singer before he went into doing all the superhero movies, things like that. He kind of broke onto the scene, and this movie, talking again about a good crime, a good noir movie, and setting aside the whole Kevin Spacey thing, because Kevin Spacey does a great job in here. He deserved the Oscar that he won for Best Supporting Actor in this, and putting aside everything we know about him since then, his performance here is great. But really, all five of the main leads, I thought, had a great chemistry. I thought that they worked very well together. And this is a movie that at the time, it was kind of a new voice. I really like Bryan Singer and Christopher McQuarrie's style. I've already talked about Christopher McQuarrie's writing with Way of the Gun I talked about earlier. So this is a movie that just really made me kind of stand up and pay attention to these two new people.
All right. Yeah, I agree with you. Everything you said on The Nice Guys. That is Shane Black at his best, just doing character work and dialogue. And the two of them, the two leads in that, are so good. Ryan Gosling, like you said, coming in and doing that kind of just showing the kind of comedic timing he has for just like a lot of the silent comedy and the physical comedy that he does in that movie is really good. So yeah, I really enjoy that one. Kick-Ass is another one. I think compared to Deadpool, the thing about Deadpool is we kind of knew we were getting into with Deadpool. It was so hyped up and everybody knew who Deadpool was. This kind of came out of nowhere. When you saw what it was actually kind of shocking because, like you said, at that point we had never seen anything like that before, and just how over the top it was. And so yeah, it's a lot of fun. I don't think the sequel lived up to it at all, but this one's still pretty solid. And then Usual Suspects. This is another one I hadn't seen, pretty much since it came out. Rewatched it, and yeah, it holds up really well. And it's one of those ones I went back to, and I was like, well, knowing the ending, because that's the big thing, is the twist ending, is it going to be still enjoyable to rewatch? I really liked it because you go back, and there's so many things you pick up on, so many little subtle things, when Spacey first sits down in the office, and he looks up, and he just kind of glances up at the bulletin board, and you don't think anything of it. And then there's certain scenes where we're talking about Jose, and who he is, and then you just see verbal, they just focus on him standing in the corner. And so many things you look back oh, they're totally giving it away, but it's done so well and so subtly. But beyond that, it's still a good story. It's still just a really nice crime thriller. Like you said, the entire that whole group of five, they're all so good at what they do. Yeah. And Kevin Pollak, actually bringing him up again, I actually watched this and A Few Good Men back to back. So it was like a Kevin Pollak double feature. And what happened to that guy? That guy's so good. Why didn't he do more movies? At least big stuff, because he was so good both of those.
He started doing podcasts with Sam Levine.
Well, that's something. But yeah, that's still a good pick. So yeah, I like all three of those movies. So so far so good. Nothing to complain about. Zach, you going to change that at all?
Hey, well, it really is going to get our first skip of this first round, which is my number 60 is Jaws.
Yikes.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yikes.
You're a little slow there. So your X doesn't even count anymore, Ethan. You might as well take it off your list. All right. My 50. My 59 is Inside Llewyn Davis. Yeah. My 58. I drink every time Cody pulls that same joke. Here we go. 58 is Paddington 2.
Everybody take a drink when he goes over a minute and a half talking about the same thing.
Oh, starting my clock. Okay. No one's allowed to drink on my watch. Okay. Inside Llewyn Davis. I can't have the clock and my notes up.
Did anybody put Yikes Paddington 2? I think we
unfortunately not. But...
Okay.
It's the best movie of all time right
now. It is the best movie of all time. But Citizen Kane down my list. Inside Llewyn Davis, One of my favorite Coen Brothers movies. This might be my favorite. Is this my number one? I don't know. I don't remember my list. But I think they are best when they're working with music, and especially the folk scene, using T-Bone Burnett, who is the music supervisor for any modern movie that deals with country or folk. But I think putting them in this 60s New York folk scene was just kind of perfect for the Coen brothers, because they have the right amount of cynicism to deal with a failed musician. Every time there's a moment of sentimentality it might take, it just gets so undercut by going completely the other direction. It's about one of their most self-destructive characters they've had, someone who can't achieve, possibly because of his own unwillingness to not be a struggling musician. It's almost like this is what he takes his identity as, that he wouldn't know what to do if he succeeds. And I think it really only hits when we watch, because the first time I think it's so uncomfortable that you're kind of left unsure of it, especially with some of the more not magical realism, but surrealistic moments that I don't understand how he's repeating the same moments, but it makes sense as you watch it. 90 seconds, done. 58. Paddington 2. This is a movie about pure joy. It's anytime you're having a bad day, this, and there's one other movie that'll be way up my list, is something just to remind us how to be better humans. Because I think they deal with it in such a sincere way. It can come off inauthentic or glib in other hands, but I think Paul King had the perfect touch, and you have the perfect character with Paddington to pull it off. But just it's a movie about being nice to people and how that can affect the community around you by being nice to one person at a time. Sounds so simple, but it comes off so lovely onto this movie. I think the imagination and the use of color and use of magical realism really helps make this something bigger than a kid's movie. It's like if Paul King is the closest to making altruistic kids movies there is. I want him to stay in that realm. It's in Wes Anderson, directed children's films. There's two scenes: the picture book that kind of comes to life, the pop-up book, as Paddington imagines his aunt, kind of exploring it. It's just so beautiful to look at and so imaginative, as well as Paddington being stuck in a prison cell, as the bear deserves. Then imagining the jungle coming up through it, once again, just lovely, and not something you're seeing in a kid's movie. And then the last 5 seconds, it's also earned and paid throughout the movie in the heart that there's never been a better animated hug that can make me weep than Paddington 2. And I have 3 seconds to spare. Done.
Okay. Joe's got yiked. Inside Llewyn Davis. This is a good movie. Very, it's it doesn't feel like a Coen, but I mean, some days it does, but it doesn't have that, that obvious Coen Brothers style to it. But it's still really solid. Oscar Isaac's really good. It's just this kind of he's just a very one of those characters where you don't like him, but he's not likable, but you still connect with him, and you just following him on his journey. You want to see him, you kind of want to see him succeed and see where he's going to go, and it just just one of those things it's not going to work out for him. So many great memorable scenes of this. You got the Please Mr. Kennedy with Adam Driver and Justin Timberlake, but for the person still to show this movie for me is John Goodman. This is my favorite Goodman Coen's character. I just love him so much. You'll find this interesting. And when he's talking about putting the curse on him, the voodoo curse on him, just real laid back in the back of his car, it's so good. I love that scene. That's my, without a doubt, my favorite scene of this movie. But still a really solid pick all the way around. Paddington 2. Enough of this movie, seriously. I mean, come on. And I'm not even saying that because of the whole Rotten Tomatoes thing. I've had this take on this for years. It's fine. It's a charming family movie. I can point to 36 other charming family movies that do exactly what this movie does. And it's not really that special. You don't get to talk right now, Ethan. There's really there's nothing. It's number one on Rotten Tomatoes. It's like somebody at Rotten Tomatoes our website isn't enough of a total joke. What can we do today to really just completely tarnish any reputation we have? And then it's top 50 on Letterboxd. It's It's fine, but I mean, top 60 of all time? No.
This is why I'm going to lose, because Kirk forgot what it means to be a child and what joy is in general. So I'm fucking screwed, because that's all I can.
I didn't forget. I'm just not one anymore. I can't help that. Time marches on, Zach. What am I supposed to do about it? But, okay, that's the first stinker of the top threes. Let's move on to Cody. We're going to start this is where everybody comes in. Cody, we'll start with which is going to be your 57.
Even as a heartless asshole as myself, Paddington 2 is a fucking delight. My number 57 is The King of Comedy. It would be really wrong for me to put Joker higher than The King of Comedy, so I had to make sure I did not. As much as I like Joker, I think King of Comedy just works better because it's not as dark. It's actually like, it is kind of dark though when you think about it. Like Scorsese's switch on this movie does not get brought up in the same breath as Taxi Driver, Goodfellas, and his later 2000s work. I think this is one of his best films, and I think De Niro is one of his top 10 performances in this role. A man that can't take a fucking clue whatsoever and just keeps going. And it's like the celebrity of Jerry Lewis, like, all right, I'll give you a shit. Come on in. And then he just keeps, and then he shows up at his house and he keeps, and then he ties him to the chair and he's just like, I let this guy have an inch and he took everything. And this guy is, and Jerry Lewis' comedic delivery with Robert De Niro's like straight, like, you wouldn't say that, right? Now get out of my house and leave forever. It just works so well. There's a lot of inspiration from this in the Joker. I understand that. But I think this just works because Jerry Lewis and I think De Niro play off each other so well. Oh, who is his girlfriend in this? I'm really bad. I'm really bad at trivia. This is why I don't play. Maybe it's no one big, and I'm fine with not knowing it.
I'm trying to remember. It's
Sandra
Bernhard?
Yeah.
Bernhard, yeah. I think their dynamic of how crazy she is in this film, like when Robert De Niro leaves him, her, and Jerry Lewis in the same house. Yeah, it's just, I think this movie works. I think it's one of Scorsese's best, and the comedy is really good, but then the dark twist that this movie has is really incredible.
Yeah, this movie's fantastic. That line it walks just between like crazy, like it's almost like they just took Taxi Driver and Travis Bickle and just like knocked it on its off its axis just a little bit towards like comedy, and it just works so well. This is definitely like my top 2 or 3 De Niro performances, just because you never really know just how, if it's just him, if he's psychotic or if he's just that oblivious, or if he's like using the obliviousness as an excuse to just push his, what he wants and to get what he wants. And it's just, he like I said, he walks that line so well. And, just see down in his basement when he's recorded recorded the show with his mom, leave me alone. And just just him, that progression of him like pushing in, like not stopping, like not knowing when to quit, showing up, getting the guy's limo, showing up at his house and just thinking it's okay. You said
and
Jerry
the
Lewis,
last bit when he's like doing his whole stand-up thing, like
like he thinks like there's nothing wrong with anything he's doing. And Jerry Lewis is great. My favorite scene in the whole movie is the cue card scene. Just like when he's sitting there, he's like the card is like, he's more annoyed than scared. These are gun police. He's like, the card is upside down.
Flip the card.
Yeah. It's so good. It's just how exasperated he is with these people. It's so good. It's a great movie. This is definitely, I think I had this probably somewhere in the same spot for my top 100. I'm not sure. But yeah, this is definitely a great choice. I love this one. Everybody else on King Comedy?
I haven't seen it yet. I did see I saw Joker though. So.
Yeah, it's one of my biggest Scorsese holes, but I can't watch it anytime soon because everyone in our community logged in the past year or 2 years adoring it. So I have to avoid looking like I'm on the bandwagon as much as possible. So at least 5 more years before people forget 10 people watch on the same day.
I just saw this movie for the first time like in 2019, I think. And I actually really enjoyed it. I mean, I'm not a big Scorsese guy, and his stuff is usually this isn't kind of my lane. But I really liked it. I think a lot of that's due to the performances. I think Robert De Niro does a great job. I think Jerry Lewis is good, mostly because this is probably the closest to actual Jerry Lewis that he's ever played himself. Instead of doing the zany comedy, he's kind of being the asshole, which by all accounts he kind of was. But yeah, and obviously there's all the Joker comparisons, of course. I think that's why I saw this, because I was hearing comparisons, so I checked it out. But yeah, good story.
If the Joker pushed people towards King comedy, then
it succeeded somewhere, right?
Yep. Okay. What's your next one, Cody?
All right, my number 56 is Fargo.
Previously yikes, right?
I think so.
Yeah. Oh, I'm safe with Andrew Barr. This is good. I had the highest. Yeah, again, this is another movie that did not know was highly regarded in the community until Boatman, Barr, Koho, it's from there, or around there. So you have this different thing. But this movie's just really smart in all its delivery. I'm not a Coen Brothers fan, but when Coen Brothers hit, they hit really hard for me. They're some of my favorite movies of all time. Fargo's one of them. This is a movie that doesn't overstay its welcome. It's a very simplistic story but a lot of shit happens in that hour and 30 minutes that they give you. I think William H. Macy and Frances McDormand are giving two of the best performances of the 90s in this role, especially every scene that they have together. When William H. Macy thinks he's getting away with everything, everything's going to plan, and then this just small cop shows up and fucking wrecks everything. And the father-in-law, I just love the father-in-law dynamic in this movie with William H. Macy. Just basically, well, I'm not a bank. I'm not just giving you money. This is not how this works. I don't give a damn about you. I give a care about my daughter, not you. I'll deliver the money, and then all the shit goes down, and the famous woodchipper scene and stuff. But yeah, that scene where they're inside, and she's like, "Well, it has any cars?" No, there's not any cars. Well, have you done it? Have you checked? Yeah, of course I've checked. When's the last time? Just keeps, and then he yells at her and is like, "No need to raise your voice with me." And then she finally starts putting the clues together, and it all just goes fucking south. Steve Buscemi he's in this movie. Mm-hmm. He's absolutely incredible. That dynamic of the two, when he gets shot and then, well, if you haven't seen it, sorry, tune out. Don't pay attention. When he gets shot in the neck and just holds it basically is bleeding out everywhere. It just really works. There's a lot of things that this movie keeps going up on rewatch, but with Barr close, I just can't put it higher because he's a hack. So yeah.
You had this?
Yep, I had this somewhere in my 80s, I think. But yeah, this movie is perfect. It is my favorite Coen Brothers movie. Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything Cody said. I actually think that Steve Buscemi and Peter Stormare are my favorite part of it. I love watching them go on their little road trip and just they have such funny hijinks and all their dialogue is hilarious. But Peter Stormare is also really scary, even for this bumbling crook, these two idiots. I love, this has been talked about a lot, but I love the idea of telling the audience that this is based on a true story when it's not. And so many people still think it is, but it's I just think that's so funny. This movie gave birth to a great TV show. I've only seen the first 2 seasons. Those 2 seasons are great. Yeah, I mean, they do so many things in this movie that shouldn't work for a movie, introducing Frances McDormand as late as they do, and having a lot of the tone of it, the comedy and the darkness and the violence, it all is just blended so perfectly and so well. It's fun to watch, even though it's dark and upsetting at times, because of there's these moments of realism, even with this weird dark humor. Yeah, it's such a great watch every time.
Yeah, this is a movie that grows on me the more I watch it. I think that's probably the case for most Coen Brothers movies. But yeah, the action, the acting, this is so good. So many great characters. William H. Macy just plays the perfect sad sack, and he's so perfectly cast. This he's so downtrodden. You don't agree with what he did, but you kind of understand what where his desperation come. The way everybody treats him, the way his father-in-law treats him, why he's so desperate to make something on his own. And it just everybody's, it's just a bunch of dumb people, and then because like you said, Ethan, Stormare and Buscemi are just these like bumbling. It's just, you could tell they think they're like criminal masterminds, but they're just both really dumb and kind of just bumbling through it. And then you bring Frances McDormand's character in it, and she's so. I love the way they introduce her because you think at first she's just going to be like this kind of bumbling cop, like local, podunk cop, and then they show like right away you see like how her doing like the detective work and figuring it out. So it kind of like informs her later on, like putting this whole thing together, piece it together on her own. So yeah, it's really really fun. Like you said, Ethan, it's very dark, and at times it's also very fun and almost whimsical. So. That's a hard combination to get used to. The first couple times I watched it, I really wasn't into it, but the more I watched, the more I enjoy that. Brian and Zach, why did you guys have Fargo on your list?
I like Fargo. I mean, it's not one of my favorite Coen Brothers movies, but I really enjoy it. I think Frances McDormand is phenomenal in it. This is kind of the movie. I mean, she had done stuff before this, but this is kind of the first movie where you kind of, really saw what she can do, and kind of, she became like the actress to watch. I think the rest of the movie doesn't quite live up to the same level. Not to say it's not good, but I think she's so good, and William H. Macy as well. But then the rest of the movie, the story in that is good, but not great for me. My favorite memory of this movie actually has nothing to do with the movie itself. Is that when it first came out on video, you could buy it packaged with a wood chipper snow globe. And it was like when you shook it up, there'd be the white and red flying around in the middle of it. So that was fun.
Yeah, I don't have anything interesting to say. I like Fargo quite a bit. I do think it's interesting that we talk about Pulp Fiction as being one of the more influential movies in the 90s as far as sparing so many ripoffs that no one could duplicate what they were able to do. And I think Fargo is equal to that. I think there's so many things trying to capture this Coen-esque dialogue and Coen-esque mood directly related to Fargo, and nothing could do it successful because they just have the magic formula to get this done. I just don't think I love it as much because there's no animated bear in pink prison suits, so that's why it'll be better.
All right, what's your next one, Cody?
So I'm just going to call this run community movies where they go to die, because I didn't realize what I did, but here they are. My next one's the 55 is The Social Network.
Yikes. It's not as much of a community movie. That's just a world movie.
Well, I know, but it's very well talked about in this community. Listen, I don't talk to Larry the postman. He talks to me about Social Network. Kaleb Koho doesn't shut the fuck up about Social Network. So, this one's going to be a yikes, but I'm going to say real quick. It's one of my favorite movies of the 90s. It's one of the best action movies of the 90s. You can't let a bus go below 55 at speed.
Yikes.
I fucking knew it.
Shocker.
I'm shocked. And then I'm done. Sweet.
All right, moving over to Ethan for your.
I knew as soon as I put it on there, Brian would have
died. My number 57 is a movie of class. It's a sequel. It's one of the best sequels ever made. Gremlins 2, The New Batch. Now, any yikes on this one? No? Okay. So, Gremlins 1, great movie. We all love it. The puppets, Joe Dante. I love that, Ryan. The puppets are great. You got the Spielberg charm because he produced it. All that, it's fantastic. This movie does what all great sequels should do. It takes the original and it's like, what if we just did a ton of cocaine and did this again? And then you get Gremlins 2. Joe Dante, I think the story was that he didn't want to do it, but the studio was like, you can do whatever you want. And he was like, okay. So he just made this crazy spoof, meta, ridiculous, crazy nonsense movie with Gremlins. And I love it. I know a lot of people don't like it because it shifts tones. It's not a horror movie anymore, really. It's just but the first one's goofy anyway, so just get over it. It's fun. You got a scientist who's got all these different DNA tubes, and the gremlins get into them, and then each gremlin becomes a different type of gremlin. You got the spider gremlin, you got sexy gremlin, you got scientist gremlin who's really smart, and he leads. You got electricity gremlin. It's great. You're in a big. You're in essentially Trump Tower, clamp Industries, whatever. Billy's back. Phoebe Cates is back. They make fun of the dumb monologue Phoebe Cates has in the first one and makes it even more ridiculous in this one. It has one of the best fourth wall breaks of all time. Spoilers if you haven't seen it, but I'm going to talk about it. in which you're watching the movie and the film reel burns up. And you're like, what's happening? And then you cut and you're in a movie theater and Hulk Hogan stands up and he's like, what the hell? What's going on? And the projectionist is like, Mr. Hogan, there's gremlins in the projection room. And he's like, gremlins? And then he like rips his shirt off and yells at the gremlins to put the movie back on, and they do. It's incredible. This movie's, I love it so much. It's crazy madness, and it's better than the first one. Gremlins 2.
My opinion on this movie has evolved over the years because, like, when it first came out as a kid, I was like, oh, more Gremlins, and then I watch it like, oh, it's so exciting because, like, as a kid, you're like, oh, it's just all these like cartoony, cool, different new Gremlins. So excited about that. As I got older, I was like, okay, that's kind of dumb. They kind of did some stupid stuff with the movie there. And then like the more I like watched it, and the more I, like you're saying, like, came to understand the backstory of it, I really appreciated it more. And just that's the best thing about this movie is just the fact that they let Dante go so nuts with it and just basically do whatever he wanted. He was done with Gremlins. Like, he wasn't interested in, like, he kind of like accepted like the dumbness of the first one. Was like, yeah, I don't want to do that anymore. And so this one, he kind of just embraces that and spoofs it and just spoofs sequels in general, and does so many cool things with it. It's John Glover, right? Is Clamp?
Yes, so good.
He's so good as Clamp.
Good.
And who else? Christopher Lee is the mad scientist. Yeah. And just a lot of cool little roles like that. Just Clamp Tower is so neat, like with just all the different stuff and like this, the smart building and everything. It's just a lot of fun. Yeah, it's, again, I understand why people look at it like that's crazy. It's dumb, but like it's smart dumb, if you know what I mean. Like it's smart controlled stupidity, and I really enjoy that. So everybody else. Saw some reactions.
Hold on.
What are your thoughts on Gremlins 2?
You're giving this man a pass on 57, putting Gremlins 2 on here? What are we doing?
It's a little high.
What have I given you the range of? You insult this man for putting Paddington 2 on this thing, and you're saying, oh, I understand the stupidity of it. Stop this. I have not seen this movie because everybody has told me how bad this movie is. No, stop. And you're just going to sit there and accept it at 57? Do you realize what he had lower than this? This is insane. You flipped papers around for somebody that had The Mummy at number 1 of their favorite movies, and he walked in here, survived 4 weeks, had Fargo in his 80s, and walked in here with Gremlins. You're like, I understand. Hulk Hogan. This is bullshit. This is absolute.
Oh, good stuff. No, well, first of all, I know what I'm getting with Ethan, and I'm okay with it.
You person now determines
if Paddington 2 would have had electrical Paddington and vegetable Paddington and sexy Paddington and bat Paddington,
you're saying that for Paddington 3. Wait for sexy Paddington. I'm pumped.
Okay. All right.
I think Ethan best described it when he said it was Gremlins if they took a whole bunch of cocaine and wrote the sequel, because it's absolutely what this is. And it goes a lot stranger to like Looney Tunes. It definitely leans more into the comedy. The first one was never really a horror film, but it was closer to horror than this one was. This one definitely leans into comedy. I think at one point even doesn't the sexy gremlin, they imply it had sex with like a human scientist or something like that at one point?
Yeah.
I think I thought so.
Yeah, doesn't she go after the security guard, I think?
I don't like this near as much as the first one personally, but I do enjoy this movie. The Hulk Hogan scene you're talking about, it's funny because when it first came out on home video, they replaced it where it would go, instead of the film burning up, it would go to static, and John Wayne came on and yelled at the Gremlins. I think most of the versions now you watch that, like in streaming and that, they've just do the original theatrical version, but you can probably find on YouTube where they had John Wayne doing it. So
I have to watch that. That's incredible. Yeah.
How they decided Hulk Hogan? I hadn't seen since I was a kid, which is weird because I've watched Gremlins like 5 times as an adult, and for some reason never felt a need to turn this on. I don't know why. Except once he said "sexy gremlin," then like I'm watching it tomorrow. Like I'm sold. But also once you say Hulk Hogan, like I'm a little bit unsold because that's not something I need in my life. You don't need Hulk Hogan in 2021. We'll be okay.
All right. Andrew, Ethan, what is your 56?
No, he would have better movies.
Yeah. Better. Okay,
Wow.
Cody hates Andrew's movie taste until I have my movie taste, and then he's like, "Yeah, Andrew's got good movie
I
taste."
just hate this biased bullshit that's happening on the show right now. That you walk in here at 57.
Kirk
and
is
get
a man of
pass.
culture, okay,
No,
and he can
he
make his
is
own
not.
decisions.
Yeah,
He
I'm not
hates
convinced
movies.
money
He
wasn't
tolerates them.
passed.
All right,
But
anyway,
you can't call faction shenanigans because he hates my stuff. So
No, I'm not
True.
calling faction. I'm just saying. I think he's on. I think he's a robot.
all
He's
right,
been
anyway.
replaced.
My number 56 is Evil Dead 2: Dead by Dawn. This is another sequel, 2 in a row. The sequel to my last pick, you could say, that does what the first movie does, but just better. It is Sam Raimi's best horror movie because this is where Evil Dead becomes Evil Dead. It becomes the perfect blend of horror, comedy, insanity that you come to expect from this franchise. Bruce Campbell hams it up times 10. The gore effects are multiplied by 100 from the first movie because you get a real budget now. This movie does something so fun, which I love. The first like 5 minutes, I guess, or first few minutes of it, whatever, are like a remake of the first movie. And it just gives you like a little recap, but they reshot it and did, new things, different effects. They redo it, give you a little intro, and then it picks up right after the first one ends. With Ash just having been possessed by the Deadite spirits. This movie just does so many fun things. Like the blood, the amount of blood in this house, in the cabin in this movie is so fun and like Looney Tunes crazy with it. The scene where he's like, everything in the house is laughing at him, like the deer head, the lamp starts like bobbing and he's just crazy at that point. So he starts bobbing with it. You get the iconic Ash Williams chainsaw hand and boomstick combo in this movie. It just has everything you want out of Evil Dead. Like, this is the quintessential Evil Dead experience, and Sam Raimi is just like a master of horror comedy, which is such a hard genre to do well. And it's got like everyone it has seen it knows it's got that fantastic tease at the end for Army of Darkness, which also capitalizes on it, and it just makes it like such a fantastic horror trilogy. Evil Dead is I love it so much. Evil Dead 2 is one of the best horror sequels ever made.
All right. Fun fact: I have not seen any of the Evil Dead movies. That's a big, blind spot in my horror repertoire. But meant to watch this one, another one, just to get a chance to for the show. I was thinking about just lying and said I saw it, I loved it, just to piss Cody off further. But
nice.
No, this one I haven't seen. Anybody else got anything said Evil Dead 2?
I think he actually summed it up great already. I mean, this is kind of where Evil Dead became Evil Dead, and it did become the perfect horror comedy. It's one of those movies that's kind of half remake, half sequel, but it improved on the first one, and of course Bruce Campbell is just national treasure.
I have not. Maybe I've seen this as a child, but I don't remember. I've definitely seen bits of some of the series. Who knows?
So I've never seen I've seen 2 of the Evil Deads. I've never seen Evil Dead 1, but I've seen Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness. Everybody told me I wouldn't be missing anything if I watched this Evil Dead 2, and what I've learned, you're correct. I think they're just not my movies. I can respect them. Like, I understand why there is a cult following for them. I will say, if you're going to watch Army of Darkness, watch it with Nazario and Mike. It makes it a way better movie. But Evil Dead 2, just the practical effects and the stuff they're able to... It's out there. It's really weird. It's not my kind of movie, but I can definitely respect what they were going for. And I think Bruce Campbell's fantastic in it.
All right. Ethan, what is your 50? I think 55 we're on now.
55, yes. My 55 is Old Boy. I was really hoping
Spike Lee's, right?
Yeah, Spike Lee's Park Chan-wook's Old Boy, which is a masterpiece of revenge, violence, action, thriller, drama, all of that. That I actually refuse to watch Spike Lee's remake because I can just tell it's going to make me upset. This movie is like, it's just perfect. I mean, this is the first like Korean language movie film that I think I ever saw, and it made me realize like how good Korean film is. It's hard to talk about this movie without giving a lot away, because if you haven't seen it, I'm not going to talk that much about like the actual details of it, because I want you to just watch it. Go in blind as you can. I'll give you the basic premise though, because it's crazy. This guy has this daughter, and in the beginning of the movie, he gets taken by these mysterious people and put in a room, and he's put there for 15 years. And he just has a TV in there, I think. And he is monitored day and night. He cannot kill himself because they'll just heal him. They'll just fix him up. He can't escape. He has no idea who did this. He has no idea why. And then after 15 years, they just let him out. And he's got to figure out who did it. And he's got a very short amount of time to do it. It's such a great little premise. And the mystery behind why he was thrown in there, and what you learn about that, and like the twists and turns that the story takes are just like masterful storytelling. It's super, super dark. It's very violent. It's got one of the best action scenes of all time. The hallway scene, everyone knows who's seen it knows what I'm talking about. That incredible scene where he eats the octopus, and it's just such a like beautifully like sad, dark, incredible revenge story that like don't look it up if you haven't seen it. Just go watch it if you can handle like a dark, violent movie.
Yeah, Old Boy. Everything you said is absolutely correct. It's a great revenge story, but it doesn't glorify the revenge. Like it's kind of it just presents it, and just it's such a visceral movie just from him being stuck in that room and everything he tried, everything he has to do, everything he tries to do, and just how he starts like to try to build himself up to get ready to, for when he's released. And then, like you said, the hallway scene, that fight scene, just him with that hammer, and just people keep coming, and it's just honestly like you're just waiting for it to end, and it doesn't. It keeps going. It's so good, and then him eating the octopus, like it's just so like gritty and real. And like, yeah, the story, it's not even really a twist. It's just the resolution is just so crazy and out there. And yeah, it's a great revenge movie. It's a great martial arts movie. It's a great it's a great action movie. Has anybody else seen Old Boy, the original?
It's not streaming anywhere.
I've seen the Spike Lee version and not this, which might be like one of the biggest mistakes I made in my life, and I can't turn back time. But that's what happened.
Yeah, it's not streaming anywhere. It's been on my watch list for a really long time, but I haven't been able to watch it yet.
I have to actually, when several years ago, when I started trying to get more into like a lot of Asian cinema, this is one of the ones that was kind of on the top of everyone's recommendation list. And so it's one of the first ones I checked out, and I really enjoyed this. And I will agree, you need to go in knowing nothing about it. And I feel bad for Zach because now he can't watch this one without knowing things that he learned in the remake, but it's not going to have the same impact actually. But I mean, yeah, this is from the direction to the star, to especially that you talk about that action scene in the hallway. It's excellent made film. I highly recommend it.
All right, and Ethan, your number 54.
Yeah, my number 54 is an incredible adult stop motion film called Mary and Max.
Yikes.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe. All right.
Let me double check this. Yikes. Yes. Yikes.
Okay. Cool.
All right. Okay, Brian, that takes us to your 57.
All right. My 57 is Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I know Kirk is not a fan of John Hughes. I really like John Hughes, most of his films. Not all of them are hits. But this is my favorite, I think, of John Hughes directed movies. This is a movie that, by all accounts, he apparently wrote this movie in like a day or a weekend. And yet it's still, to me, his best one. I mean, and a lot of that, again, is you have one main character. This is a fourth wall breaking character. I mean, even Deadpool references Ferris Bueller. This is kind of the quintessential fourth wall breaking character. He's just a charismatic kid who takes you through obviously a day in life when he just wants to have fun, but it's not even doing it for himself. He's doing it for his friend who needs to get out and live. He's too uptight. If you believe some theories, some people have tried to put the Fight Club theory that Ferris Bueller is Cameron's Tyler Durden. It's kind of fun to rewatch with that in mind, but obviously that's not what's happening here. As somebody who grew up in the Chicago area, of course, I love watching this movie and just seeing all the landmarks and, I've been there. I know where he is, that recognizing everything in the movie. And this is another movie where the soundtrack, this is kind of a, stereotypical 80s kind of movie. It's got a great memorable soundtrack, especially a band called Yellow did the song, Oh Yeah, you know the song, but it's just a lot of fun. Yeah, and it's kind of the movie that made Matthew Broderick a star. Essentially, now he hasn't gone on to superstardom or anything, but this is the movie that kind of made his career.
Nobody else had this, right? No. Yeah, I'm not a big John Hughes fan, specifically of his like high school genre stuff. This is the exception. So yeah, shut up, Paul, because I like this movie.
Hey.
And yeah, this is the one. I think it's completely different from all the other stuff because it's not real cookie cutter. Like it's not like the fact that I think they go outside of the school and outside of the school situations is probably what makes it work. Plus, like you said, Matthew Broderick is such a good, so good in the role. He's so charismatic. Yeah. He's so likable. When you watch it, when you're younger, you watch it. It's like every kid. It's like wish fulfillment. Like you want to be that guy, or you want that guy to be your friend, and you want to have that day, that like perfect like skip day. And even as you watch as an adult, though, it's still a lot of fun. And just like you said, even like not being familiar with the area, just you could tell they're hitting like a lot of like important places. And yeah, the story it's just a fun story. I enjoy it. Everybody else on Ferris Bueller.
I'm really curious what the real Kirk thinks of this movie because this Kirk apparently likes it. I really enjoy this movie. I enjoy most of John Hughes movies because I think they're good. I don't think it's the best written one, but we'll talk about that probably later. I just think I love the when Cameron and the principal are interact, like the phone calls and stuff. Like that stuff is. I think the principal and the secretary in this movie have still to this day killed
Jeffrey
me.
Jones, I love. He's a great character actor. He doesn't work much anymore because there were allegations there.
Yeah, let's not say we love Jeffrey Jones here.
But back in the 80s, he was great. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think the sense of humor and stuff that work really well in that movie. And again, I've been to Chicago numerous times, not being far away from it. It's exciting to see like when you know a place. But yeah, it's really quotable, and I wish Brian would have quoted it a little bit more, but I'll save it because I'm saving that for later. But yeah, really great movie.
I just saw it for the first time as last summer. I think because just like I said, I can't watch King comedy because everyone's talking about when you're in high school, everyone like even though I was a little older, everyone like loved Ferris Bueller and talked about it. So it's like I can't be part of you guys. And so I finally watched it. I really loved it. And I'm also not into a lot of John Hughes. I think his stuff is very part of its time, and it's hard to age out of what it meant to be a teenager at that time. But I think this one ages remarkably. I think this is like the cleanest as far as like social material that you can judge of any of his movies. I think that's why high schoolers in the mid 2000s still loved it. I think even my kids, some of them still love it because it ages like a fine wine. It's timeless. It's a universal experience of what it means to kind of be like free as a teenager and have fun and have experience. It's a joy to watch. And I also I lived in Chicago for 3 years, so as a Chicago experience, I had the same kind of connection to it as Brian is. Like a little nostalgic trip back to places you've been. So.
Yeah, I mean, this movie is delightful. I have not lived in Chicago, but I enjoyed this movie being set in Chicago, and I enjoy this movie. I like John Hughes. Like, the older I get, like I don't know, the more I watch those movies, they like go up and down for me, like depending on how I'm feeling when I watch them. But Ferris Bueller usually is just like a blast. Unfortunately, Jeffrey Jones, we lost him as an actor because of reasons. He is a great addition to a lot of 80s movies, and he's really good in this one. Alan Ruck is like my favorite part of this movie. He's so good. His triumphant moment at the end of the movie, like that is so like the whole movie is just building to that. Like he is such a more interesting character than Ferris, and like he's so much more fun to watch. But you need him to make Ferris the kind of character Ferris is. And there's that scene when Ferris is like running through all the yards towards the end. Like that's a really like legitimately really well directed, really great scene. I do love that song, Brian, at the end, and it has that great post credit scene that what are you doing here? Go home, right? Like it's one of the earlier ones that I think have done that, and
it's still one of the best.
Yeah, it's still one of the best. It's still probably has not been topped almost. It's a great movie.
All right, Brian, what is your 56?
Did not even intentionally put this in the same group, but it is Shane Black's other original film, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. I really already talked about kind of Shane Black and how much I enjoy his characters and his writing. But this is the film also. This is Shane Black kind of came back out of nowhere after he hadn't even written anything in like 9 years. And he came back with this original story, which he also decided to make his directorial debut. He brought Robert Downey Jr. back, which basically he had kind of, he had all his personal problems with drugs and everything else. And he had kind of been ostracized by Hollywood. And they made him the star of this film. And this is what brought him back into the forefront. This is essentially the film that got him Iron Man, because even Jon Favreau said he saw this and he saw how he could be Iron Man. So it's kind of made the rest of his career. Val Kilmer hadn't been done much for a while, really. And he came back. His career didn't get quite the resurgence that Robert Downey Jr.'s did, obviously. But it was great to see him again. And I like I said, I've already kind of discussed all this with Nice Guys, but it's just a fun, good kind of modern noir film.
Yeah, basically everything I said about The Nice Guys applies to this movie, so I won't repeat myself a lot. But yeah, Donnie's great in this. Val Kilmer's really good. Like, other than like Tombstone, you never saw Kilmer do anything like, like character-wise a lot. Like, he was kind of like a cookie cutter. He's one of those guys. Just he played, basically himself. And maybe still do that a little bit, but still with the dialogue and everything, he brings really something special to this. So, really good. The other thing that bugs me about this movie is, this did get Downey Iron Man, but it also is probably the movie that got Shane Black Iron Man 3 and that abomination. So, that's a downfall for me. But no, this is a really fun movie. I like it a lot. Everybody else on Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
This Iron Man 3 slander needs to leave. It is one that does not fit into the MCU, but overall, great time.
Iron Man 3 is not the movie on trial here, even though it's terrible.
If anybody
still my show, I'll talk about whatever the hell I want whenever I want, Mr. Beller. You sit there with your 57 and think about what you've done. You besmirched this show. This is a great movie. I didn't get to talk about The Nice Guys, but like Shane Black is one of those directors that I'm finding myself like his script, just the way he makes movies fits my style. I like Iron Man 3. I like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. I just watched it recently, I think in the last year. And then, of course, Nice Guys is brilliant. So, great choice. More rewatches and probably will make a list in the future for me. So.
I actually, when Brian said this, I immediately in my head, I was like, oh, this could have easily been on my top 100 list. Like, I love this movie. It's so good. I don't remember the first time I saw it, but when I did, it was one of those few movies where I was like obsessed with it for a little while. Like, I rewatched it like a bunch of times because I just liked it so much. I think it's just really, really smart. It's really funny. Val Kilmer in this movie, it's up there with his best performances. I won't talk about what his best performance ever is yet for reasons, but he's really good in this movie. I love the twists this movie takes and plays on like these old school like pulp crime novel kind of things, like the thing with the book and getting shot with the book and like the ending with like the people walking in the room. I won't say all of it because I don't want to spoil any jokes or anything, but if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. It's Shane Black's best movie by far, and like it's the most Shane Black movie ever. And Robert Downey Jr. is fantastic, and Michelle Monaghan's awesome in it. She's I love this movie so much. It's really good.
I didn't realize that Ethan's such a Jim Morrison super fan. About to put The Doors at number 1. And
that's exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah. I have some real attention span issues. I saw this as a 16 or 17-year-old when it came out, and I'm pretty sure I did not pay attention to 1 second of it. Life can be hard sometimes. Okay.
And just to clarify something you mentioned in chat, this isn't. It's based on a story, so it's not original. But I just meant not an existing movie franchise that he was dealing with somebody else's properties. Is all I meant by that.
And Brian, what's your 54? 55? I'm sorry, 55. Sorry, yeah.
55 is The Professional, aka Leon the Professional. All right. The Professional, when it first came out, they later retitled it, actually, especially when they released the director's cut. But this is a movie, Luc Besson, who, of course, went on to do, Fifth Element and some other things. He produced a lot of other people's work as well. This is another person who kind of kind of came out of nowhere at the time. This is, I think, Jean Reno did a great job playing this hitman who befriends this young girl, and so it's got a kind of real sweetness to it. I mean, even though he's essentially an assassin, he's kind of taking her under his wing and even teaching her kind of the art of assassination, but at the same time, kind of trying to protect her. Gary Oldman's performance in this is iconic. I mean, most of Gary Oldman's performances in everything he does he's one of our greatest actors, I think. But in this one, it's so well done, and it's so untethered. I mean, it's over the top. There are certain scenes. I mean, there's like one gifable moment when he screams everyone, which of course everybody knows that scene. But even just his more subtle moments, I thought Gary Oldman did an excellent job in this movie. The music in this movie is very underrated. I think it really sets the tone for this thing. It's not. I don't even know if I'd call it an action movie. There are definitely action scenes to it, but it's almost more of a drama because there are certain parts of it that are very kind of slow burn. I mean, you have scenes where he's going shopping for milk and things like that, and it's just a lot of character moments to it. But yeah, this is another movie that kind of came out of nowhere. I hadn't heard anything about it. The movie came out. I went and saw it and loved it, and I've seen it numerous times since then.
Yeah, this is a good movie. This is a really great addition to like that 80 or I'll get there 90s like crime genre like that. Just like it has that real 90s feel to it, but it's not like a Pulp Fiction ripoff or anything like that. It's really its own thing. Almost certainly Luc Besson's best movie. Jean Reno's great in it. Just the character he creates, and this is the first time I think I'd seen him in anything, and he's just real. Like that, just like almost like Zen kind of hitman type character is like that kind of like simple innocence that he has, juxtaposed with the violence, and his relationship with Natalie Portman. I know, like a lot of people have like revisited that and said it's uncomfortable and weird, but I mean, I never really thought I feel like from his end anyway, which is when you look from the part. I don't feel there's anything like ever. I never got a vibe anything inappropriate there. I feel like it was very well done. It was handled well within the movie and in the actual writing of the movie. And yeah, Gary Oldman's just a great just over the top villain. Like a lot of actors would do that role and it would just be ridiculous. And he just he brings Gary Oldman to it. So there's something different about it. I really like him in this, and just like that that scene where her family's getting killed, just like that over the top violence, and like you said, there's still at the same time quiet character moments, like the parts where he's training her and stuff.
I was going to even talk about Natalie Portman. Yeah, this is her first film, and she knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, and just almost like a father-daughter, friendship that forms between them is just a great addition to it. So yeah, good pick. Everybody else on Leon the Professional.
So I watched this movie at the end of last year, and I think on rewatches it will make one of those lists. I think it's absolutely incredible. I think Gary Oldman's. I've seen Gary Oldman in a lot of films. This is probably the one that is burned in my brain now. When I think of, I think he's over the top, but I think he's good in this film. I saw Paul say he didn't really like him. I think he's absolutely incredible in this film as a character that you don't really associate with Gary Oldman. But the scene that I'll talk about is Natalie Portman when she's coming home from shopping and just the walk down the hallway and the knock on the door and please open up. The acting that she shows in that one scene is insane. Gut wrenching because she has to keep her ever-loving cool while she walks down the hallway while her family just got slaughtered. And everybody got slaughtered in that house. It's such a powerful movie. I actually really enjoy the ending of this movie too, of how it ends. But yeah, I can't wait to rewatch this movie. And it was just too late on my list to watch. And did you just change your thing to Speed, or was Speed always back?
I did that right after you mentioned it.
Okay, you leaned over and I saw Keanu Reeves and I said, "Wait a minute, is that there the whole time?"
Yeah, I mean, this movie is fantastic. Someone did say something incorrect. They said this was almost certainly Luc Besson's best movie. It's obviously The Fifth Element, but we're not talking about The Fifth Element here. We're talking about Leon the Professional, which is a great movie. It's a really good crime movie. Jean Reno is fantastic. Natalie Portman's like insane for a child actor. It's like scary how good she is. And yeah, I do really like Gary Oldman in this movie. It's been a long time since I've seen it, so I don't remember specifics, but I do remember like a few key moments. I mean, there's obviously that incredible line reading where Gary Oldman's like, everyone. It's so good. And I remember the ending is really fun. They're not fun, but it's like I like how it ends a lot, like Cody was saying. Yeah, it's really good. I'm glad they didn't go with the original script as was written, because it would not be a good movie, but it is good because of how it's written now.
Yeah, I like this movie quite a bit. I am like a huge Natalie Portman fan. I'm not allowed to enter contests where we can meet Natalie Portman. My wife said she would be jealous because I have entered these contests before. But I think this is like in my like triumvirate of favorite kid performances with Billy Elliot I mentioned earlier, and the one that's going to come up literally as my next pick. But I think this one, she's put off the precocious actress or precocious kid better than anyone has ever done without it being obnoxious. She's someone trying so desperately to be older and be more adult than she is, but it comes off a little more true than it can. And I agree with Brian that I don't think at least the chemistry in the film is not problematic. I think the relationship they have has some like very parental and patriarchal kind of chemistry that is kind of heartwarming. I think the Max stuff comes when you think about Luc Besson and his personal issues putting an end to it.
There's a trend in my picks today, it seems.
Yeah, then rather than what the film is doing on camera, I don't think is inherently problematic. But yeah.
I thought Zach was going to say it wasn't allowed within 500 yards of her or something.
All right, Brian, what is your 54?
Well, for all these subtle character moments in this one, this next movie's not subtle at all. That is Top Gun. Top Gun is about as 80s as you can get. I mean, just not only in the soundtrack, of course, which features Kenny Loggins in a few songs and everything else, Berlin, but just the style of the movie. It's got that whole Bruckheimer thing to it, directed by Tony Scott, who I think is the better Scott brother. I think Cody would agree with me just because all Denzel movies. But this is a movie that made Tom Cruise, which some people would say could be a good thing or a bad thing. But this is the movie that made him the superstar that he is today. It's definitely got that whole rah American kind of Cold War feel to it, where the Russians are the villains, and it's coming. Val Kilmer, again, not intentional, his second appearance in my list today, in probably his second most iconic role after Tombstone. But yeah, this is a movie that I'm not going to say it's world-class filmmaking, but it's total 80s cheese. I will freely admit that, but I'm there for it. I mean, it's the kind of way you saw in a theater, and you felt good, and you cheered, and you had fun. So it's just very 80s.
Yeah, this isn't the movie for me for a lot of reasons. Just like I'm not into that like 80s action, like unintentionally, just how it's like so super bro-y, and just like that whole like alpha.
Are you talking about thing. The volleyball scene?
Volleyball scene, yeah, just and all that stuff, and it's like it's done with like zero irony and zero self-awareness. Like it's so presented as like these are like the coolest guys in the world, and Tom Cruise, like this is not a version of Tom Cruise I like that this is like that one character he played in the 80s, and this is whenever anytime he reverts back to this, like I think he's improved as an actor. Like I'm not as on board with Tom Cruise as most people are, but I think he's gotten better from this. But this is like the Tom Cruise. It's like he's just being Tom Cruise, and so yeah, not a fan of Top Gun. But yeah, this is just not my scene at all. It's for anybody who knows me. What's everybody else think about Top Gun?
Yeah. Sorry, Zach, go ahead.
There's a weird lack amount of penises in Tony Scott movies because like no one has directed with more male gaze than Tony Scott has. Like he does have like such a specific infatuation with this type of masculinity, of this kind of broy heroic, airplane school kind of masculinity that is throughout I think similar to a lot of his other movies. I think like there's something to enjoy about this movie as, you know, a timepiece of what people liked in the 80s. I hate the music in this movie so much. And like the score in the sounds like 80s music we should just forget ever happened and just move on, especially the scores. It's very obnoxious. I never made a guest on my podcast more mad than talking about this with Chance. He might never come on again. But it's horrendous and almost throws the movie away because I just like I can't watch because my ears hurt so bad. Like I have like my brain just freezes.
This is a movie that like I always thought I would like love that I had just not seen, and then one year I finally saw it and I was like, no. It is like I love cheese in movies. Like I really do. You guys have seen my list. Like there's a lot of cheesy stuff on my list. This movie is just the cheese, and you can't have just the cheese. You need the cheese on something, and not only that, but like let's talk. I mean, some of these scenes that like. You know, this movie, the scene with Take My Breath Away, the sex scene with like the tongues and everything, like it's so gross and like silly, you know, it goes on so long. The only good thing about that scene or this movie is that it gave MacGruber a couple of really funny moments because it plays on that scene. And MacGruber is a masterpiece. I should have put that on my list too. But Agreed. Top Gun is just, yeah, I don't know. It's, I mean, the jets look cool while they're flying, vroom vroom, you know. But like, this movie is literally just a fucking Air Force commercial, and like, come on. I don't know why people love this movie so much. We're not in the 80s anymore. This could only be cool in the 80s, and we're in 2021, which is not to say you can't enjoy 80s movies, but this movie should stay where it came from. And Ridley Scott is the better Scott brother. How dare you?
This is the prime evidence that Tom Cruise has never had sex with a woman, let alone anyone. Like he doesn't know what that even is.
He's only had sex with Xenu.
I once had to argue Brooklyn Vail on best 80s action movie. I picked Die Hard. They picked Top Gun. And after that moment, I've never been able to look at Top Gun the same way. As much as I enjoyed it at the time, I had to literally, how somebody could think that was the best action movie of all time of the 80s is absolutely the most insane thing I've ever heard. Top Gun is just a lot of like spectacle, but not a lot of substance of anything. So it's actually one of my least favorite Tony Scott movies, to be honest with you. But I think Tom Cruise and, Val Kilmer are great, but I think overall it's meh.
All right, so that means we're going to go over to Zach now for your 57.
Yeah, me in St. Louis. That's all I got on me today. Meet me in St. Louis. I have a deep love for movies that are just kind of a slice of life of watching a community of people live in a specific time. There is, another one layer coming up as well, probably like many in my list that could be thrown into that because the plot of this movie is very minimal. It's about a family expecting to move within a year as the St. Louis World's Fair is about to occur, and they are figuring out they have to move to New York, and it's just about what their year is like. There's some like levels of how they're coping with the move, but it's just how they, as teenage women are getting courted by men, how the youngest daughter just like acts like a pure kid and causes chaos around the town. And it's just like watching what a family would have been like. I think it's like the 1910s or whatever when it's supposed to take place. You can look up the history of when the World's Fair was in St. Louis. But this is what I mentioned earlier as one of my favorite kids' performances. Margaret O'Brien, who plays Tootsie in this, is one of the funniest things to me that have ever happened. There is movies that I don't know how they got it, or scenes in this movie that I don't know how they got away with in the 50s. That the Halloween scene where there's just like the two youngest daughters go off, and there's like an adultless apocalyptic town of kids like burning shit, and like this girl Margaret O'Brien plays a kid that like pretended she was like killed on a railroad, and like there's like I can't even remember everything, but it's like pure dark chaos that like comes. So like out of nowhere for this movie when it comes. I find it so hilarious, but I think what that scene does and what her performance does is really capture the freedom of being a child, but also the emotional, twists and turns, because she also has one of the most emotional, devastating moments in the end when she's really coming to terms with what it is to move, while Judy Garland sings the original version of Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas during Christmas time. That's where the song comes from, and it's has never been better performed than her doing it originally. But through that, and you just see the sadness on their faces, she just has a complete breakdown and like just destroys, slaughters every snowman they've made. Just a full, like, really natural child version of releasing your anger. This is something that I probably did as a kid. The other kids that you just like black out and all your emotions just coming out, and this aggression. I think it's really magical how she captures that freedom and joy as a kid and this. But I think all the performance of lovely Judy Garland, I think it kind of gets weirdly like underrated as an actress, because she gets so attached to either Wizard of Oz or attached to like her drama and how she was toiled with by the studios, but she was really just a one-of-a-kind performer, and this is evident here, and a great teenage performer. So Meet Me in St. Louis, wonderful film.
This is one I haven't seen yet. You sold me on it because I was expecting like apocalyptic and setting fires to be part of the description for this movie.
It's a 10-minute part of the movie.
Still, it sounds exciting. But yeah, I definitely want to check that out. Everybody else would meet me in St. Louis.
I haven't seen it, and I don't know if I ever will. Maybe.
I don't think I've seen it.
There's no sexy gremlins. From somebody that's grown up in St. Louis majority of their life, 1904 will never let you forget that that's when the World's Fair was.
Thank you.
The St. Louis is very proud of the 1904 World's Fair. I watched this after your recommendation of it, Zach. I think I was on your podcast and you talked about the last movie you logged, and you talked about Meet Me in St. Louis. Still, my favorite rendition of you is doing the whole Meet Me in St. Louis. If I could get that as a ringtone, I would make it my ringtone, because it literally makes me laugh every time. This movie's really good. I've actually did a little bit of studying on Judy Garland. In the past couple months, just because I find her story very fascinating, and just what studio and all that stuff happened to her was kind of sad and kind of heartbreaking. But this movie has got a lot of charm in it. It's not for everybody. It's a very of the time musical. It's very cotton candy kind of musical. It's very, very, but it has a lot of emotional elements throughout it. I really enjoyed it. So yeah, it's on HBO. It was on HBO Max. I don't know. So
I correct myself. Apparently, I watched this in 2018, but I honestly remember nothing about it.
Someone else.
Yeah, but I heard that movie was bad. I heard that movie was bad, Paul. That's why I did not watch it. I just looked at other stuff about it.
All right, Zach, what is your 56?
I assume people were waiting for this. We got the Muppets Christmas Carol. Muppet, and that's it. All right. It could have been. That was a bad fake out. Anyways, yeah, I know you hate Muppets, but fucking Christmas. I don't know. This movie was really one of my primary connections to the Muppets as a kid, and weirdly the show Muppets Tonight. So a lot of my, the nostalgic connection and lifelong fandom comes, from this movie. I've watched this movie more than anything in my life. I think watching as an adult and everything I've came to love about the Muppets, what's really amazing about it is how they connect these natural themes of what the Muppets kind of stand for, of the joy and community, into a tale that can work with that so thematically purposeful. It's take, who are the happiest creatures we can find and have them battle against Scrooge. It was just kind of it was genius. Who's going to turn Scrooge's dark heart into the Christmas spirit better than the Muppets can? But then also casting Michael Caine was there in genius mood, because he takes it so seriously, and it was the smartest thing he could have done. He can play the same performance in any other version of Christmas Carol, and it will work. That's the best people who work with the Muppets act like they're working with real actors, treat them as cast members, not as puppets. And Michael Caine, lets the jokes be around him, lets the goofiness be around him, but he delivers the real heart of the story. And I think also the production design, was perfect for this movie, and I think so not working in Muppet Treasure Island, which is the only Muppet movie I don't like. I think it's a very ugly movie, but I've been doing the same, production design that Brian Henson, I think, is part of his kind of forte. But I think because a combination of the Victorian setting, on the Dickensian setting, on the kind of darkness and grayness worked with it, but also it makes it seem a little more playish. With Christmas Carol, works well with that kind of play like charm. I've seen it as a movie. I have not taken in any like cultural artifact born in the Christmas Carol. I can almost recite the line. I've seen the play 50 times. It's all, but so maybe it's so deep down, ingrained in my soul that I give some of its negatives a bit of a doubt. But I think it's just a perfect, delightful Christmas movie, and I can watch the Muppets do anything. So,
I like the Muppets.
Real fast. Paul talks about Rizzo. Rizzo gives Gonzo a kiss, and it's the best 1 second in movie history. And I want that screenshot and blasted in big posters on my wall. It's the best. Okay.
I like the Muppets. I like the original trilogy. I'm not a fan of this movie. I just feel like this is the point, this is after Henson had died, and I definitely feel his absence throughout this entire movie. Like there's just something missing. It's not just the voices; it's just something about the tone and just these characters, like they're different somehow. And I love Dickens. He's one of my favorite authors, and I love A Christmas Carol. And I'm kind of a purist about it. There's a lot of things they do with this that I don't like. Michael Caine is great as Scrooge, but I just don't think like the Muppets that work the best in this are the Muppets that they invented for the movie, like the existing Muppets. I just don't fit well. Like just little things like the fact that it's nitpicking, but the fact that Bob Cratchit isn't Scrooge's lowest level employee, you have all those rats around there, that like completely ruins the Scrooge Cratchit dynamic. Like it's completely wrong. Once you have someone lower than Bob Cratchit, the movie should be about the rats, not about Bob Cratchit, then, because that's the whole point. And then the blow my frickin' stack, the two old guys as Marley is just god awful. Like I hate that so much. Like the fact that like they're taught, like the whole thing about Marley is like the regret and the self-loathing, and the fact they're like laughing about the stuff they did in life, that my head wants to explode when I see that scene. I hate that so much.
You need to chill out.
But this, but yeah, like there's just a lot of stuff. Like I don't think that the Muppets were a good fit for this movie to begin with. I just don't think they're a good fit for the story. But overall, like I said, I just don't think it's like it's your story. Like I think I don't know, because that whole like middle trilogy of this Treasure Island Space, I don't think any of those movies are great. I think it's like more or less cash-ins after Henson died. But this is probably actually the best of the three, but I still don't like it.
Me and Cody can tell you that the double Marleys are named Jacob and Robert. Just to let you know.
I have not seen the Muppets Christmas Carol. I actually haven't seen a lot of the Muppets movies. I've seen like a handful. But I like the Muppets. I'll probably watch at some point. I want to watch the rest of them.
I like this one. I mean, I like a lot of versions of Christmas Carol, and I enjoy this one. I even enjoy Marley and Marley. I don't get the rant, but then again, you clearly have more of an attachment to the source material than I do. So I had no problem with it. This is another one. I really like the songs in this movie. I enjoyed that. I think the only parts of it that really slow down for me are when they focus, like there's scenes, like especially like in Christmas Past and that, where there's way too many humans. I'm like, I want to watch the Muppets. So it kind of slows down a little bit when they get in some of those scenes. But yeah, I like it.
This whole movie, I don't even want to talk about the movie. I just have a picture Kirk around Christmas and him walking around the house and, oh, Dad, get out of here! It's the scene. They're gonna start talking again and watch them die and just get angry and start punching things. Yes, I'm not a Muppet fan. Zach knows this about me. But this is the one I kind of enjoy because, sorry, Kirk, I think the Christmas Story, like that Charles Dickens thing, is kind of shitty. To be honest with you, I've never liked the adaptation of that. I never enjoyed it. Yeah, so I like it when the Muppets actually do it. Yeah, you can write it down. That's fine. You let Gremlins. This whole thing's a fucking sham at this point. You're shitting on Christmas Carol, and you're sitting there. Gremlins 2 is sitting at Halo 57. Yeah. So yeah, this is the joy and the happiness of the Christmas Carol that I kind of like. So good job, Zach. I'm proud of you.
Okay.
All right, Zach, what is your 55?
My 55, very similar to Muppet Christmas Carol in a lot of ways. Some would say the ideal doubleheader, and that is Taxi Driver. Yeah. So I don't think that a character study has ever been done with such specificity and like very connected performance work than Taxi Driver. I think that's what Joker is missing, is that they don't really know what they're trying to say about this character or live within it. But this is my favorite Robert De Niro performance. I've never seen something so lived in. Compare this, and it is essentially a horror story in a lot of ways, but he still captures the humanity of how this person can go down this track, even though he essentially is this, mentally ill, monster. By the end, you kind of still see him as a person and how that goes. I think in the 21st century mind, as a horror story, also viewing this as, the path of an incel is also terrifying, because that's essentially what he is when someone gets so detached from humanity. What can happen to how your mind can get corrupted and distort the reality around you and create this artificial idea of how you can be a hero and what needs to be done to make the world better. I think also just Scorsese is going on on all levels here with the cinematography and the score all function together to create that kind of uneasiness that you're just kind of always on edge with where this character is going to go, where his mind is going to go. Every moment, can veer towards the uncomfortable, especially when he's with Sybil Shepherd. And maybe self-destructed in the way and purposely taking her to porn movies, but also you just see maybe he just doesn't know how to function in society. I think having Sybil Shepherd and Albert Brooks was also just genius. Comparative casting, so people to be on the other edge of what normal functioning humans could be like, to go with this guy who's just off and about. It's really rewatchable for such a dark movie. You're more to get every time. I love Taxi Driver. So. It inspired me to be a taxi driver, but I failed the test.
It's a weird takeaway. Zach, I'll level with you. This is exactly why I picked you to be on the show, because there's nobody else in this community who's gonna swing from Muppet Christmas Carol to Taxi Driver. That's just not gonna happen.
Really want to see Muppets Taxi Driver. I'm in on that shit.
But yeah. I said this was in my top 100, obviously, and when I brought it up, I said I love gross 70s New York. That's my favorite genre, and this is the most gross 70s New York movie there is. And just the world around him and how that reflects the character is so great. I just love the character he builds, that monotone just voiceover of just him talking and just him getting crazier and crazier, but he feels like it's making more sense, and he feels like he's getting more sane. It's so good, like you said, having his interaction with Sybil Shepherd, trying to be a normal person, and just how impossible it is for him, and just that uncomfortable, the phone call and everything, just how uncomfortable. Like I said, this character and the character from King of Comedy are so similar in so many different ways. Just like that lack of self-awareness and just that anti-socialism. But yeah, this is so good. Just the cinematography, the score, that all brass score is so good. Yeah, this is definitely one of Scorsese's best, and one of De Niro's best performances. Everybody else on Taxi Driver.
I'm a big Scorsese shill. I love most of the things Scorsese does. I love a lot of this movie. I hate the ending. I've said it on record. I absolutely despise the ending of this movie. I think this is where you cut it. You do not need to. You do not need to try to turn this character around. You need to leave the character where he is, where he's bloody and flipping off the camera, and just end it that way. I think that would have been perfect ending. The whole the ride around with her is just, I hate that part. It's one of my least favorite parts and that's why it always has went down for me on a watch. But overall, all the way up until that point, I absolutely love this movie. I think it's absolutely incredible. It's just the ending goes off a flipping cliff for me. So it's never going to take a top 100 because of that. If I stop the movie and I just let it in there and I never believe the other ending now, maybe.
I love. I mean, the movie's incredible. I actually like the ending a lot because it's got like a couple different ways you can interpret it. Well, yeah, of course, But no, I mean, like I've read different interpretations of it. One that it's like Travis's dying thoughts and like kind of what he thinks he is going to happen to him, or kind of his wishes as he's dying, which I think is great. Or you can interpret it as just like the way society like can kind of make heroes out of people like this and stuff like that. I kind of lean towards the first one. I think it makes for a better ending, but I do really like it. And yeah, the movie is incredible. Like Zach was saying, it's one of the best character studies ever made. Scorsese, it's at his best. De Niro is so good in it. It's been like parodied a million times for good reason. Jodie Foster's so good in it. It's just it's a really, really, really great movie. And I haven't seen it in a long time. I probably have to rewatch it because it's been too long.
I mentioned earlier how I'm not really a Scorsese guy, and this is kind of an example of that. I don't care for this. I mean, it's fine. I'm not a big fan of it, but I don't have a problem with anybody else who does because it's more in their wheelhouse. I will say I have to appreciate this movie. If he's still watching, Joseph can back me up if I'm wrong, but I think this movie is what won us the Full Metal Trivia Teams title a long time ago. So I have to respect it for that.
For you, Brian. So proud. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, still here. Zach, what's your number 54?
This is weirdly one of two movies I'm bringing up today that is adapted from less than 1,000-word story. This is Where the Wild Things Are. I don't know why I paused.
Muppets Christmas Carol, Taxi Driver, Where the Wild Things Are. It's hard putting those in their place, right?
He's no longer the Ray Gonzo. He's no longer the father of Theo. New name, Whiplash Zach Ford. That's the
to be fair, this one's closer to Taxi Driver than Muppets. There's a little bit of darkness in this movie. This second Spike Lee movie of the night. Or Spike Jones, sorry.
Yeah, old boy in this, right?
Yeah.
On second Spike Jones movie, I think that he was the right director for this movie in a way, as far as making it accessible for the people who love the book as kids. This is not a movie for kids really at all, even though I think they try to market it for that, because he does add such a weirdness and a darkness to it. They take this, very short children's picture book and just kind of use the world to tell a story about the loneliness and fears of childhood, taking this Land of the Wild Things and making it a encapsulation of all the things that trouble a child. Like every character on this represents, part of a child's head. You have the fear, you have the anxiety, you have the loneliness, you have the shyness, and it all comes off so heartbreaking. Just to remember what it's like to go like that, but also just it's a universal experience. We underrate how hard it is to be a kid sometimes, because you're just learning how to function, how to be a human, and it's hard to understand things. You're so insecure in everything. It seems like the biggest problem in the world. And I think there's a number of times that watching a movie in theaters with the right person can really affect you deeply. I have some other examples of this, but I saw this with my mom, and who was just so broken up by it. I think just kind of witnessing what my childhood might have been more like. Maybe not really able to empathize with that point, but making it more real at the time. And my mom actually looks a lot like Catherine Keener, especially when she was a little bit younger. So there's also just that she can very easily see herself in that. character's mindset. Also, the score is top tier. Karen O, is a musician I really love, and her soundtrack is great. And then Carter Burwell, second score of the night because he also did Fargo. But this is his most whimsical scores, but just lovely. And this has nothing to do with the movie itself, but the trailer. 2008, 2009 had like the top trailers because Revolutionary Road was like this blistering, wonderful trailer for a movie that's not very good. But Where the Wild Things Are just like blew me away as a trailer with the great Spike Jones shots, but also Arcade Fire's Wake Up, which is their best song. Awesome, just lovely over it. It should have been the movie. I don't know, great movie. I'll show it to Theo when he's young, so he can just be prepared for how shitty childhood is.
I just watched this a couple weeks ago. I love the look of it. I love the character design. I love the monsters. Talking about Jim Henson, this looks like something Henson would have done back in the 80s with those characters, and I really like that. I feel like talking about how it's based off a short book. You kind of feel that there's not much story to it, and like you said, it's not meant to be. Like it's more about like the feeling and everything. But I feel like it's kind of, especially in the middle, it just kind of gets repetitive. Like it's like a situation, and then like he finds a way to solve it, and like it just seems to keep happening over and again, and then it just ends. But it's fine. I think 54 is a little high to put on your list, but shut up, Cody. But yeah.
But for me, you gave Ethan the credit. But for him, I get him.
Guys, can you just get over the Gremlins 2 thing already? Can we move past this?
You just can't say any statement that might.
I like Gremlins 2 better than I like Where the Wild Things Are. I'm sorry. Everybody else know Where the Wild Things Are.
Well, because Ethan's taste, I understand it. That makes sense. Zach taste, fuck you. You like kids movies? Get the fuck out of here. Haven't seen it.
I have not seen it either.
Spike Jonze, my favorite director, or not my favorite, one of my favorite directors. This is like the only movie of his I haven't seen all the way through. I tried watching it a few years ago, and I wasn't into it, and I just kind of gave up. But I promise I will watch it again, Zach, through this new lens, and I will hopefully find something in it. It was a long time ago, so I feel like I'll like it if I watch it.
All right, that takes us to speed round. Everybody's top three. Cody, what is your number 53?
The speed round, you're cute. Okay. Let me get back to it because I have no fucking clue what it is. That's definitely not it. Koho, just put it on the screen. I don't fucking remember. I lost my Letterboxd list. 7.
Yikes.
I fucking knew it. This is a Brian's week of all.
Okay, Ethan, you're 53.
All right. About to get yikes pretty hard, I think. It's Die Hard. Go ahead. Who's gonna? Come on.
Brian's I decided to leave it off.
Not gonna get me this time, Brian.
Told you the speed round. Brian, what's your 53?
My 53 is Iron Man. Nobody. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, Iron Man was a second-tier Marvel character, really. I mean, as far as the comics, people knew Spider-Man and Hulk and the X-Men, all those kind of things. And Iron Man, I mean, he was a successful comic, of course, but when they said they're going to kick off their, Marvel, when they started making their own movies, this is before there was an MCU, but they were going to start making their own movies, and they decided to start with Iron Man, which seemed kind of weird, and it seemed like they were settling for that because, they had licensed out all their other characters to other studios. But really, I mean, this was such a pleasant surprise. I mean, Jon Favreau did a phenomenal job with it, and of course, again, Robert Downey Jr. tonight, casting him in this role, I can't picture anyone else in this role. I actually have to wonder how much of this movie the script and dialogue was rewritten for him, because everything just seems perfectly tailored to his kind of the way he talks and his brand of humor. The special effects, both practical and digital, I thought were phenomenally done, and I think this movie just really kind of found a good balance in, it was still able to be fun, but not like Fantastic Four movies they made, things like that, but it wasn't way too serious. It didn't try to, it was grounded in reality. Because, I mean, by here they weren't dealing with superpowers, it was just technology and stuff, but it wasn't dour and it wasn't too serious. It still was able to have fun, and a lot of that is due to Robert Downey Jr. I had something else I was going to say about it. But yeah, even from the opening, not the opening. Well, from the opening scene, the movie is great, but especially that cave escape where Tony has basically made his suit out of scraps in a cave. as Jeff Bridges would tell you. That scene alone still remains to me one of the best action scenes in the MCU because it's fairly simple, but it's got everything you need to have in an action scene. It's got action, of course. It's got a little bit of humor in there. It's even got some drama because, Jensen basically sacrifices himself to save Tony and tells him, don't waste your own life. So, I mean, it's just a movie that surprised everybody, and it kicked off, obviously, a series that's going strong today.
Yeah, this is still top tier MCU for me. Regardless of whatever else has come out, I still really enjoy this movie. Just very rarely do you get like you probably name on one hand just actors who are born for a role, and Downey definitely was this. And the fact, like you said, they didn't go dark and gritty, which is kind of the way things were going then, which would have been very easy to do with Iron Man because there's a lot of darkness to that character.
Yeah,
and you could have focused on that and made this a very dour movie, and and that way, I mean, you would have been a little more accurate to the comics, but I think they definitely went the direct direction. As somebody who enjoys the comics, I love they're very respectful of source material. The fact that part of the Iron Man story is the evolution of his suit, and the fact that they start with the old, the big bulky suit he makes in the cave, which was his, which basically the Silver Age Iron Man suit, which is what he wore, and then they go to the different iterations and everything, was just really cool to explore that. And just the way they designed the character, that scene with him, flying with the fighter jets, that really just jumped off the page of the comic books. That's really what you imagine when you read the comics of, what he would look like, how he would move, how he would fight, all those things. Just a lot of great action scenes. That scene where he goes into the town and, rescues all those people from the terrorists is just so great. Just so you said, just such an important movie. How if this would have faltered, we wouldn't have, the MCU. It wouldn't exist. And just how much of that is on Downey's shoulders and Favreau's shoulders. So, like I said, still top tier, probably top 3 MCU for me. Everybody else on Iron Man.
Tony Stark built this in a cave with a box of scraps. It's my favorite MCU line still to this day. Obadiah Stane gets no credit of being one of the top villains of the MCU. It's always going to be one of my favorite ones. It was on my list for a little bit. I had to take it off just because I could make this list completely comic book, basically, at times, because I like comic book movies a lot. But yeah, I couldn't imagine Tony Stark not being played by Robert Downey Jr. He's my favorite character throughout the MCU, and I still think this movie holds up, and I think it's better than a majority of the MCU movies. So, great choice.
I will say, you brought up Obadiah Stane. He is a good. Jeff Bridges plays a good villain, but I think like the weakest part of the movie is like that same versus same fight at the end. That kind of just brings it down a tier. But other than that, everything else is great.
Yeah, you beat me to it. Because I like Iron Man quite a bit. But it is the last 20 minutes action scene I could just kind of check out for a little bit. Just robot punching robot. They're not robots, but you get the fucking deal. But I think
no, I don't explain it to me.
So they're wearing Metal Gear that look like fucking robots. Anyways, Jeff Bridges is really great. And so as a human, villain, as Obadiah Stane, it's really great. But as far as the power aspect of it and the threat that he poses, is never as great. But I enjoy Iron Man quite a bit, as much as you can enjoy any other movie.
Yeah, I mean, I like Iron Man a lot. I think it's one of my favorite Marvel movies. I think that this movie does right what a lot of the Marvel movies now do wrong, or just have done too much for me to just like kind of hate it now when they do it with all the quips and like the endless action scenes and like this. I mean, so you guys talked about the same versus same ending at this one. I actually like it because it was before they did it in every movie, and it was like it made sense to me for the character, and I like that Obadiah Stane like basically was just stealing this technology from Tony Stark, and he couldn't do it right, and like Tony could beat him. I just feel like it fit the movie thematically for me, and like I thought it was fun. But this was like when Marvel movies were exciting. It was like I saw this in theaters and was like, whoa, that was crazy! Like that was so much fun. I really like that. And it just like it still holds up, but also like you go back and you watch, and I mean there's like I don't even know how many movies there are now, but like 20 whatever, but
23 I think.
23. Yeah, it's like it kind of makes me like the movie a little less, unfortunately, just because now having seen all the other ones, it just makes me feel like I'm watching another Marvel movie sometimes. But I gotta remind myself this did it first and did it really, really well. But it's good.
All right, Zach, what is your 53?
Oh shit, I don't know. Oh, I think this is why I was so confused earlier because I didn't know if it was the same season or if it was a small jump. Is Mary and Max?
Yikes!
Backwards yikes.
Backwards.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you do more.
That's not how yikes
talking
works.
here because I'm sure you'll talk about what. It's Saki backwards yikes. Okay. Anyways, I that was a slow.
Oh man.
Interaction with that. Okay, I think that
Go
I
home.
haven't seen this in like 3 or 4 years, so Ethan's going to talk a lot better about it because some of the details are a little blurry to me. But I do know, this is a movie about pen pals between this New Yorker that has Asperger's and doesn't really socialize with much people, and he with a young girl in Australia. And I think this movie does great at the connections we can have, across borders and across generations. And it comes off really sweet and sincere, but does not shy away from the darkness of these people's lives and from their humanities. That's why you can't at all call this, kids' movies for where they take these characters, but also just has the right level of whimsy without sacrificing its, its true humanity, because it is really funny. Has a great whimsical score by Penguin Cafe Orchestra. Well, the score is like a number of people. They have songs by Penguin Cafe Orchestra, who is this like neoclassical avant-garde instrumental group, similar like Philip Glass music that I listen to quite a bit. It all just functions together, and the animation is can be seen weird and gruesome. It's like this black and white. They all kind of look like trolls, but kind of works thematically with how these characters are viewed, and it's still engage entertaining. Stop motion for some reason can capture the truth of a story by another movie animation styles. I don't really know why, but it always works for me.
Yeah, I mean, you had this one slot higher than me.
Yeah.
I won't say too much more than Zach because I agree with everything you said. I mean, stop motion is like probably my favorite form of animation, and I think that this movie just does such a good job with it and uses it to such a great degree. Like Zach was saying, I mean, the way it's shot, or I mean, quote unquote shot, but the color scheme and the animation, like it is very whimsical, but it also, the way that you can use stop motion to show these characters is kind of misshapen and like almost ugly in a way, because it's about a movie about these two like quote unquote like ugly people who are not accepted by society, who find love together in this like beautiful platonic relationship, of course. And Philip Seymour Hoffman and Toni Collette are like, I mean, they're two of the best actors, one living, one past, but blending their voices incredibly, like just giving life to these characters and making you fall in love with these little clay people. It's one of the saddest movies I've ever seen. Like, it just, because you grow to love these characters so much, and it's so upsetting, certain things that happen in the movie, and it's like one of those things where you just wish you could like enter the scene to explain things to people so you can like prevent conflicts from happening, but you can't. The music is incredible, like Zach was saying. Penguin Cafe Orchestra is so good. I was obsessed with that one song for a while that was in Mary Max for like years. Yeah, I've seen this movie many, many times. It's just, it never gets old for me. Eric Bana actually gives a really funny voice performance, and the places they take his character is really funny. The contrast between the dirty, like gross New York stuff with Max, and the kind of odd, like Zach said, whimsical, like Australian parts with Mary. It's just such like a lovely, beautiful, heartbreaking movie that is, if you don't like this movie, you have no soul. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. It's so good.
I just watched this today, actually, for the first time. Kind of a downer. I disagree with Paul. As Paul says they balance the humor and the sadness. I think the humor, it just feels like really affects you. Like, I see what they're trying to do, but like it's just so like one lousy thing happening after another. And I won't give away the ending, but it's like it doesn't really stop. And I mean, that's fine. Like, not every movie has to be a happy movie, have a happy ending, but like, it's just like, geez, oh man. And like everything about it, like you said, like they go from black and white to sepia. It's like, okay, so like depressing and dreary to, slightly different looking depressing and dreary. And just the animation style lends to that feeling of it. I didn't hate it, but like, it's just like, it was something that I really enjoyed. Zach, I think 53 is way too high. Ethan, 54. That's probably
perfect.
I think you're right. You're good right there.
It's no Gremlins too.
But yeah, but no. Yeah, I do think both of you actually, in my opinion, have the side. But like I said, like I mean, and Zach, like with this and Wild Things, like you're into that vibe. I guess I'm just not. Like I'm okay with like certain types of downer movies, but I don't know what it is about these. Like maybe like the animation family style type thing mixed with that doesn't work for me. I don't know. This movie didn't really do it for me. Cody and Brian, have either of you seen this?
I have not seen it.
Well, they said Philip Seymour Hoffman, and I was in. Then they said stop motion, and I'm out. So we'll see.
Right? Yeah.
Do you actually know that Philip Seymour Hoffman has always just been a stop motion puppet? There's no real thing as him.
Well, he has stopped motion. So.
Oh
man, that's rough.
God damn it, Brian.
Wow.
What
Okay, Cody, we're on to your 52.
So this was yikes earlier. I don't know if it's getting yikes anymore, but I'm shameful for have not seen this movie sooner, because the definition, if you look up, of a Cody movie is this movie, and the only reason it's this low is because I haven't watched it that many times, and it's going to go up. I watched it last night; it would go even higher, and it's The Fugitive. Shut up, Brian.
Wait, I'm actually not sure.
Somebody said it earlier.
Wasn't Cody the yikes for Brian, or am I remembering?
I thought so.
Oh yeah, I was looking too high on my list. Yeah, I had it low. I had 99. Yeah.
Okay. I love this movie. If you want to see who I am in a movie character, it is Tommy Lee Jones to a T.
Because you don't care.
I don't care. I do not care. That scene was still one, it's Harrison Ford. Two, it's Tommy Lee Jones. It's a manhunt. It's insane action at times, just like a battle of the mind. And Tommy Lee Jones is like finding him one step behind, and Harrison Ford, and the twist in this movie, everything in it is my kind of movie. And the moment I watched it, as soon as he puts his hands up in the first 30 minutes and goes, I don't care. And I was like, what the fuck have I been doing? Why haven't I seen this movie? And it keeps going. Harrison Ford, especially at the beginning, you find her. You find who did this. Just his overacting and stuff. Love it. Like everything about this movie. U.S. Marshals, don't ever fucking watch that pile of shit. I'm just gonna be honest with you. Don't watch that compared to the somebody said watch it next after this. I should have never even heard that. The Fugitive is absolutely incredible. I watched it last night. I had so much fun with it. It flies by. It's so quick pace. When the train goes off and they're like, who's got your keys? I got my keys. And he's like, you want to retrain that statement? And the guy's just sitting there because he knows he let the guy go. Yeah, it is a thrill ride. This movie from '93 works. So it feels very '93, especially the opening credit scenes when that shit starts. You're like, damn, this was from the '90s. There's no getting away from it, but it holds up so well, so well. The last 20 minutes, I absolutely love this film.
Yeah, this is a film that was all over my list. I mean, it was as high as I think 30s all the way down to off the list just barely. I ended up just making my list. I stuck it at 99. Really, if I had rewatched it more recently, it would probably jump back up the list again because it's really just a well-made movie. And this is another one where it's based off an old TV show that I never watched. I'd heard of it, but I knew nothing about it. So I'm like, okay, whatever. They're making a TV show adaptation. I don't care, but it's Harrison Ford, so I'll check it out. And it was just a real great tense thriller. Of course, another movie set in Chicago, so I enjoy watching all that part. But yeah, I mean, Harrison Ford is perfect for the role. I mean, nobody points like Harrison Ford. You find her. He's always pointing. Yeah, I don't know what else to say that Cody hasn't already said, but I mean, it's this movie that again was another surprise to me that year. Didn't expect to like it nearly as much as I did. I would agree on U.S. Marshals. It feels like the kind of movie that you would find now go straight to streaming or something like that, and it'd be fine, it'd be passable. But compared to this, trying to be a sequel to The Fugitive, it just doesn't even compare at all. And Tommy Lee Jones absolutely deserved the Oscar. He was great in this movie.
Tommy Lee Jones is like incredible. Like when they're sitting there trying to dissect the audio from his, like, well, let's hear the difference between a grounded train and an elevator train. Let's see what you guys know the difference of. Just as soon as like his smart quips throughout this entire movie just makes Tommy Lee Jones one of my favorite actors.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Yeah, I have to revisit this one. I haven't seen it in a while. I remember liking it a lot when it came out, but now it just does. Like you're right, Cody. It does feel very '90s, and like in my head, it just reminds me of like one of those like Saturday afternoon basic cable movies. But I know it's. Calm down. I know it's better than that. Calm down.
Hold on. Before you did the smart thing that I said the graphics. The movie doesn't feel 90s. The graphics feel 90s.
The movie feels kind of 90s.
Oh, I want to say one thing. He talked about the opening. I just want to mention one thing real quick that I forgot to mention. This is one movie where for some reason I remember the movie's going on for like 20 minutes, and then the credits roll with the title, and I'm like, this movie just starting? What the hell? That was all the opening?
But yeah, I do have to revisit because I mean it's great. Like I've said this about some other movies on the list already. I just love that concept of two good guys facing off against each other, like completely, different. Basically trying to stop each other from doing what they're doing, and that dynamic. And the dynamic between Tommy Lee Jones and Harrison Ford is great in this. I love Tommy Lee Jones and his group. Like just him, interacting with them is a lot of fun. I think I don't know the actress's name, but Rose from Lost is one of his people, and I think Joey Pants is in there somewhere. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. It is a thrill ride, and John Mulaney does a great bit on this. The Comeback Kid. I love what he does with that on that. But yeah, it's solid. Again, it's something I just got to rewatch. So definitely a good pick for both of you guys. Zach and Ethan, why don't you have this on your list?
Haven't seen it.
I have not seen it in a really long time. I saw it when I was a kid, and I really loved it as a kid. And I just never saw it again. I feel like if I rewatched it, I probably would like it. I don't know if it's like exactly my type of movie, but I remember a few things from it, like the jumping over into the water moment, and the I don't care is a great moment.
It's Peter Pan right off this year.
Neil Flynn, the janitor from Scrubs, shows up for a minute. It's great. Yeah, I guess I got to rewatch it at some point. It's been a long time.
Cody got me to quote something. You happy?
I'm really excited.
Zach, did you talk about this?
Yeah, I didn't see it.
Okay. All right. Then we are going on to Ethan's number 52.
All right, my number 52. Oh wait. I guess that's my my ace for the night, because my number 52 is The Godfather.
Yikes! It's not your ace
top
because somebody has it.
I got the props.
All right, Brian, you're 52 then.
My 52. Let me see. Well, I doubled up on Shane Black. I doubled up on Robert Downey Jr. Doubled up on Val Kilmer. So why not another John Hughes? My favorite John Hughes movie, not actually directed by him though, is Some Kind of Wonderful. This movie he produced and wrote. He did not direct it technically. It sounds like he basically kind of shadow directed it, kind of the way George Lucas didn't direct Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. But this is a movie that I think is just my favorite John Hughes movie. It's more dramatic than some of his stuff. I mean, it's not a full drama. There's definitely comedy to it, but it's not kind of that pure comedy that like Breakfast Club or 16 Candles or even Ferris Bueller are. This is just a movie that hit me at the right time in my life. When I first saw it, I was in high school, and just the character felt very close to me, and I loved the relationships. It's really not too original, anything about it. I mean, it's kind of a guy and a girl from different sides of the tracks, and he loves her, and there's a whole love triangle because this other girl, his best friend, also has a crush on him. And so I mean, there's nothing too original about it, but just the way it was done, I just thought it was very well made. I like the act. Leah Thompson, of course, from Back to the Future before this, but then this, I fell in love with her at the time. One of the best things to come out of this movie, the director Howard Deutsch ended up marrying Leah Thompson. Kind of creepy that they worked together there, but and then you get Zoe Deutsch out of the situation. So there you go. If nothing else, you get that. But this is just a movie that is my favorite John Hughes movie, and I really enjoy it as a good romance.
Yeah, you said something in your spiel there, Brian, that I'm going to cling to, and that's nothing too original. Kathy and I sat down and watched this about a week ago, and literally 45 seconds in the movie, I think before any dialogue had been spoken, I told her how it was going to end. I told her this is exactly how this movie was going to end. Lo and behold, that's how it ended, because John Hughes had about 4 original thoughts his entire life.
To be fair, they had a different ending. Like the studio made him change. Anyway,
was it so they did the reverse Pretty in Pink?
Basically.
Oh well, okay, but this is. I think Paul said in the comments, like Eric Stoltz's character, I think is just real bland. Like I think these are the what I was talking about before. Ferris Bueller doesn't have very cookie cutter characters, very cookie cutter situations. I mean, the one standout to me was the Elias Koteas character. And I think even that was telegraphed because they already set up the bully with the rich kids, so like he was going to do something else. But I think he was the one bright spot. I enjoyed his character, but the rest of it was just such like it was just a slog for me. Just like a very typical, stereotypical '80s John Hughes high school movie. That's about it. Everybody else on Some Kind of Wonderful. Anybody else seen it?
Nope, I've not seen it.
I haven't seen it, but the vagueness of the title has me intrigued. Like, what kind of Wonderful is it? There's many kinds of Wonderful I love. So
they don't play the song either. They don't play the song.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I have no idea why they picked this title for it.
Yeah.
So I did a watch last year of '87, and '87 is a very weird year. I liked it, but I didn't love it. Like, there were parts that I enjoyed of it. I guess I expected maybe a little bit more of a comedy element when I was going into it. It's a little bit more of a drama, in my opinion. I don't love it. So I didn't hate it. I just am so glad I don't live in Kirk's house, because I'd be really freaking pissed off if I'm sitting there 30 minutes in the movie and go, I don't tell you exactly how this is going to end, and then tells me exactly how it's going to end. What a terrible movie watcher Kirk would be. Jeez. No wonder Kathy must be miserable watching movies. This movie's going to end like this. Why are we watching it then? What's the point? Yeah.
Because Brian put it on his list. I would have watched this if Brian put it on his list. Blame Brian.
I should have just picked worse movies just to make him watch them, even if I didn't like them.
Yeah.
Kathy does love this movie, Brian. She's excited to rewatch it.
Well, she has taste. Not in husbands, but movies.
Oh, my God.
Don't miss.
Zach, what is your? Oh, you talk about? I'm sorry. Okay, good.
No, it's my turn to go. You just seemed very lost. You just got very.
No, I wasn't sure if you talked about the shit or not.
All right, I did. No.
Okay, good. 52.
All right, my 52 title that can describe all of us in this film community, and my oldest movie on the list is Freaks, 1932's Freaks. This is Todd Browning, who also directed Dracula, which Dracula is kind of it has kind of an up the middle telling of the monster movies, especially Universal monster movies, and this movie is like unlike anything else at the time. I find it so modern in a lot of ways, and it's directorial style. I think it's like Dazed and Confused meets circus horror. You just got me in there because I fucking love Dazed and Confused and I love circuses. There's something weird I like about the circus movie. I legitimately there's a period because of where my anxiety goes. I thought I was going to like flunk out of college, and I was like looking at clown schools. This is not a false. Like I thought this was like a legitimate career path for me. I probably should have went that route. My life would have turned out better. but this movie takes a community of what is the circus freaks for the 1930s. So it's a lot of mostly, not all, but mostly real actors of people with different, physical capabilities, and which treats them like it seems like it could be exploitative, especially coming to the horror movie. They do enact the horrific scene at the end, but it's so amazing how much compassion is given in this movie, especially that it's a very short movie, it's like 70 minutes, but 90% of the runtime is just to the development of this community, of how these people interact with each other, and they give every person this right moment to help us understand them as a person and as a character, to where then the pain that they feel when they're, more or less bullied by the, more physically abled performers in the community, and taken advantage of, that you feel that pain and you're really rooting for the horrific actions. That's why I think as a horror movie, it's not something that's scary as much as you're rooting for the destruction of the people that come. And those kind of horror movies, for some reason, always work with me. That's where this is where the one of us kind of chant originates. And that scene alone is you really start to feel uncomfortable. But I think the rambling nature of this film is unlike anything that there is, and it makes me fall in love with these characters. And I think it's a weird movie and something that more people should talk out and check about, and stop watching every Billy Wilder movie. Other classics exist.
Wow, that's unnecessary.
I love Billy Wilder movie. It's just the community needs to chill and know that there's other directors that existed before 1970.
That's an unnecessary shot taken there at the end there. Zach, you say that you considered Clown School was just one of the least surprising things I've ever heard. I think that you would have made a great clown. I think that is something that the world missed out on, as you as a clown. I love this pick. It's not my top 100, but I think this is a great pick. This is a fun movie. Like you said, the fact that it's like a horror movie, but you're rooting for the monsters, like the normal people or the bad guys. That's great. The fact that they use actual, and I don't want to say this, but I hate using this term, but actual people who were circus freaks. And they, there's no special effects or anything. Everybody with different, disabilities or whatever, they actually were that. And that just adds to the airiness of the movie, because everything you're watching is real. And and like you said, just it's heartbreaking because you see the way they're treated and the way they're, it's a very realistic portrayal of how these people would have to live. But then it's that revenge fantasy form, and it's a blast. I love this movie. It's just one of those little people talk about a lot, but all the people have seen it, and I think more people should see it because it is really cool. Everybody else on Freaks?
I have not seen this. My only knowledge of this movie comes from mentioning it in the movie The Player when they did the One of Us line, but I've still not seen this.
Also, Wolf of Wall Street.
Mm-hmm. Don't you ever bring up Wilder's name and be a disrespectful asshole about it, okay? You've told me to watch this for a long time. It's on my watch list. I just haven't got to yet.
Yeah, I'm a really big fan of the 1993 Alex Winter film Freaked. I think it's super funny.
That's Freaked, Ethan. That's Freaked.
You got some great Randy Quaid. What's that, Brian? Wait,
that's Freaked.
What are we talking about? Oh shit! No, I haven't seen Freaks.
Don't spoil Brian.
Freaked is great. Later. You guys should all watch Freaked.
Yeah. Yeah, guys. Instead of Billy Wilder, you should be watching Muppets Christmas Carol and Box Trolls, because those are
or Gremlins too.
I like Billy Wilder a lot, but literally, it's the only classic films anyone in our community watches. And if you get a classics round, you're guaranteed at least one Wilder crush it every time.
Ooh.
I'm just calling it now.
Wow, taking shots at certain question writers. Crazy. Let's go to number 51 with Cody. I almost read your 51. What is your 51?
This is a movie that has been apparently loved by a lot of people. It was a yikes earlier. It keeps going up on my list. It's a movie that's completely out of my wheelhouse of movies that I'm supposed to like. And it's What If, also known as the F Word.
I had a lower.
All right.
I I got to this movie late. Apparently, everybody loved this movie before me, and I will gladly bow down to whoever loved it more at a certain point. Paul, Brian, maybe Lucas, maybe Zach. I don't know, but I have it the highest, so everybody fuck off. I watched this movie the first time, and I had no expectations for it whatsoever. I actually don't like Daniel Radcliffe as an actor. I'm not a big fan. And so this movie, I had zero expectations for it, and this movie absolutely blew me away. I believe it's one of the best romantic comedies out there. I hear movies like The Big Sick and everything thrown away, and this movie was very, at least, undertold to me because no one brought it up to me. I think the chemistry between both the characters are absolutely incredible. Adam Driver, of course, steals the scenes because he's hilarious. You know, I had sex and now I'm having nachos. One of the best movie lines of anything. But how this entire how they meet and how they're not supposed to be together, and how honestly respectful Daniel Radcliffe really is about the entire thing. Because, I mean, if you give this to many directors or many different screenplay writers, they cheat, and then they have to tell the story and blah, blah, blah. Honestly, there's the hint of them liking each other. And then he flies all the way across and goes to meet the boyfriend, and gets punched in the fucking face. And he comes out and tells all the feelings, and it goes completely wrong for him. But it honestly ends in a very beautiful way. I watched it the first time and I was like, wow, this movie is absolutely incredible. I think I'm a little too high on this. Then I watched it with my wife, and it just reaffirmed everything that I felt the first time even more. Because I watched it with my spouse, and she loved it, I loved it. It's just a really good story, and it keeps going up for me. I think this movie's beautiful. Yep. What if?
Yeah, this is another movie that was all over my list. It was always going to make my list. It was just a matter of where. Cody's kind of already covered everything, but yeah, I mean, Daniel Radcliffe. I actually like his post Harry Potter career choices, because I mean, he very easily could have, kept trying to do the same kind of thing in the fantasy or, the fandom world kind of thing, and had probably a good career, but he didn't. Instead, he's tried to do a lot of different kinds of things. He did, there's a movie called Guns Akimbo, which I really enjoy him in. He's done a lot of dramas, and he's done some biopics. He's done a little horror here and there. And so I really like that he's I like the actor he's become. Swiss Army Man, another one, is out of the left field choice that he made. But in this movie, I think he does the rom-com very well. I agree. Adam Driver as well as Mackenzie Davis, I think they steal pretty much all the scenes they're in. They're so much fun, especially Adam Driver. I think he should do more comedies.
I agree. I 100% agree.
Yeah, but yeah, Cody's already kind of covered all the broad strokes of it. But yeah, I love this film. It's an enjoyable rom-com.
Yeah, Cody, I'm right there with you. This is a movie I probably shouldn't like, but I do. So it's not my typical movie, but yeah, Daniel Radcliffe. I feel like this is like this generation's When Harry Met Sally. I think there's a lot of similarities between those two movies, and just like the story and the tone and what it's about. And yeah, the two of them are great. Zoe Kazan's real cute. Like she's really good in a lot of stuff. She just plays that character really well. And Daniel Radcliffe's really good as just the two of them riffing off each other, and then with the Adam Driver and his girlfriend, just the kind of the comparison between those two relationships. And I do think Adam Driver and Mackenzie Davis are better than are the more interesting to watch. They're just more fun. But the whole thing's great. Just how the whole, like you were saying, I think Ethan or Cody, that the just how the relationship slowly develops, so they fall right in love, and she breaks up with her boyfriend. It's more complicated than that. It's harder. The ending is a little, maybe a little too easy, but it's still a really good movie. I really enjoyed this. Zach and Ethan on What If?
Yeah, this is a movie that I saw and I really liked it the first time, a lot, and then I watched it again and I didn't like it quite as much. I feel like it's been a while, to be honest. I haven't seen it in a long time, but I think the reason I didn't like it as much was I actually kind of felt like their relationship was a little weird. But I also haven't seen it in a while, so I might be misremembering. But I like a lot of stuff about it. I think it's like way better than an average rom-com. And actually, I love what Daniel Radcliffe's doing with his career now. He's just doing a bunch of weird shit, and I'm into it, even when it doesn't hit. You know, I like that he's just taking risks and doing fun movies.
I'll just say I don't like weird shit, so that's why I don't like him.
Fair enough.
There's the disconnect.
I think Harry Potter is his weakest stuff, personally. But
agreed.
I don't like a lot of Daniel Radcliffe's modern movies, but I love that he's going for it. Like, I appreciate the hustle.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I like What If quite a bit. It's enjoyable. It's a charming movie, and I think the community is a little whack about it. But I think, you know, Kirk hitting on the nose and saying, you know, it's When Harry Met Sally for this, you know, this generation is a modernization. I think that's why it works. I think it's that, you know, that, you know, platonic friends, but also carrying over that will there, won't they chemistry has, you know, worked for generations on TV and movies. And there's something that we love about that sort of chemistry. And Mackenzie Davis, I think we just need to like really throw her into comedies. I think she has a lot of comedic talent between this. I think she's, you know, terrific in Tully, a movie I love a lot more than most people. But let's get her in that and not in Terminator. And it'll be wonderful. I had some bit I was going to end with. Like, oh, it's not a bit. AC Newman does a score. This is continuing the trend of me and Ethan just use half of this to talk about musicians we like. AC Newman, who's from the New Pornographers, does the score for this movie, and it's very delightful and, you know, better than I think the average rom-com score. Rather than just taking indie songs, they get an indie musician to make their own original music for it, which is good.
I would argue that nobody has to be in Terminator movies anymore. Ethan, what is your number 51?
My number 51 is Heathers.
Yikes.
Oh.
All right.
Nice choice, though. Nice choice.
Okay, Brian, then that takes us to your 51.
My 51 is the first John Wick.
Good choice.
Yeah, by 2014, Keanu Reeves was in real danger of becoming one of those guys who's all his stuff is going straight to DVD and VOD kind of thing, because he had made a lot of these small films that maybe they got small, you know, releases, but they weren't, you know, he wasn't making the hits anymore. Obviously, he'd done like, you know, the Matrix movies and Constantine, and after that, he was putting out, you know, some mid-range movies here and there. But he wasn't like the star anymore. So this movie came out kind of quietly. It just opened one day, and most people didn't really want to go see it at first. But it was, again, I mean, another theme for tonight. It was a pleasant surprise to me. I went in there and I just loved it. The main factor in this case being just the action. It was so well done. It was basically a couple of stunt guys who became directors and producers decided, you know, they took on to make their own film. And they did a phenomenal job, and you can tell the care they took in the action, not only the choreography of it, but it's not even just, you know, big bombastic action. It's all kind of stilted and realistic. It's like a lot of it, I mean, while it feels like obviously they're trained for fighting, it feels realistic. Like, you know, these are real kind of people fighting, not just, you know, some choreographed fight you're seeing. And then add to that, you know, all the gunplay, things like that, and they were able to mix it all in. You know, I think they called it gun fu. That's what they were calling it at the time, the filmmakers. It was just a style of action that we hadn't really seen before. And this is a movie where the story, I mean, it's silly if you think about it. It's like somebody kills his dog and takes his car, and so goes on this rampage to kill these people. But obviously it was more than that. It was what the dog represented, because his wife had left it to him when she died and all these kind of things. So, I mean, there's more to it than just the simple storyline would tell you. But they've just created this iconic character now we're 3 movies in with at least 2 more to come. And I can't wait to see where the story goes from here.
Yeah. John Wick is my problem with the first one. My first one was the only one I didn't see in the theaters. So I didn't get like a full experience. I think seeing the other 2 in the theater, that just those action scenes, they feel so much more intense. You know, watching them on the big screen. So I think I missed. But yeah, this is still a great movie. Like you said, the story is kind of silly on the surface.
But I will say, I forgot to mention that one thing I love about this movie is the world building, because they created this whole world of assassins. With like the coins as the currency, and I mean, they build upon it in each movie. They built upon it more and more, but they've just created this believable world with, you know, Continental, with this hotel where people, you know, you can't do business on the grounds, but it's I'm sorry, I just forgot to mention that. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. I was going to bring that up too, but yeah. But yeah, as I was saying, the story is kind of silly, but I think Keanu's character, he grounds it, like his performance, he grounds it and like makes you buy it. And like you said, it's not just about dog, it's about everything it represents and like everything it's been building. And yeah, that was gonna be the next thing I said. Is the world building is so cool. I love that like Hitman, like underworld universe that they create, and of course they get into it more in the next movies, but just like setting the stage for it here. I love Ian McShane. He's one of my favorite actors. Just when I see him show up in a movie, I'm just so excited about it. He's so good. Willem Dafoe is really good in this, and that kind of new style of action they created for this was just really a lot of fun, and. Yeah, it's so rewatchable too. Like you just watch that and it's just fun every time. Everybody else, anybody else have John Wick on the list?
I love John Wick. Sorry, Zach.
No,
I'll go quick. I'm a huge Keanu Reeves fan, and I love Keanu Reeves action movies. And I like that he's had many types of he's been the action hero in different ways many times, and he keeps evolving. And John Wick was a movie that everyone thought was going to suck and be one of those straight to VOD movies, and it was awesome. It's just I'm not going to talk too much more about it. It's just a really cool, really fun action movie, great world building. I'll watch as many John Wick movies as they make because I don't care how silly the story gets. The action is phenomenal every time. And Ian McShane is fantastic in everything. Kirk, I agree.
Yeah, actually. Motherfucker, just let me talk. I like John Wick quite a bit, and I think that means something for me because you can look at my list and action is really hard for me to get into. But I think when you're able to show me something really inventive and creative, that can fall for it. I like all three John Wick movies quite a bit because I think there is a unique point of view with how to deliver these movies, and no one can deliver. Silly lines, but with such bravura than Keanu can. So it really works for me. You may go, Cody. That's how we should pass it. Let's say the next person's name, Cody.
You should shut the fuck up. Okay. I love John Wick. The first one, I love John Wick 2. Third one was a little much for me, but the first one has my favorite character introduction of all time.
Yes.
I don't think there has been a better one. When a man shows back up into his house and meets his father and starts telling what happened, and his father's body language just completely shuts down and realizes he's about to lose his son and there's not a dang thing he can do, is just mastercraft. It's just you went into the boogeyman's house and you stole his car and you killed his dog. He could have a pencil and you're going to die. Basically just lays it down that you're dead.
Or when they tell him who it was, John Wick, and he goes, oh.
Oh.
That line, that one word.
Yeah.
Says everything you need to know.
Yeah, so as he keeps describing it, I love the opening to that so much. And yes, is it cheesy and stupid, the concept of the whole thing, but it works so well throughout the entire thing. John Wick was really close to making my list. I don't know which one I like more of, that one or the second one, but the introduction of that character is just the way they're able to use the guns into a kung fu, like how you described it, makes that movie so. And I still like it at home just as much on the big screen, but yeah, the big screen. I understand why that would have missed yours just a little bit because that first one, seeing it for the first time on a big screen, whoa.
And what I love about these movies too is that they're always reloading. Reloading is
actually reloading, yes.
Yeah,
they're actually reloading, yes.
Yeah, and the way he does, when he'll take guy's got to drop the clip out and put it in his, and then shoot it with it, that kind of stuff. I don't even know if that happens in this one. I get them all the actions confused, but just the fact that that's he's conscious of there's a bullet count, which a lot of those movies
they actually have magazines.
Yeah.
They carry magazines.
Yeah, that's I really like it about these. All right, Zach, take us home with your 51.
I think people underestimate how sincere I am about this because it's kind of became a real bit for me, especially on the Lucas and Zach podcast, because I may bring it up every episode. But it's the curious case of Benny Butt, my guy. Second best Fincher movie. 7's not good. Okay, let's go. And so.
Ugh.
Bitty Butt, based on a probably less than 5-page story by F. Scott Fitzgerald, and turned into a 3-hour movie, 3-hour masterpiece, some might say. This is one that there's a lot of movies that have on my list. I understand why people don't like them. I'm honestly so confused about the hate of this movie, because I think it's like pretty majestic in a lot of ways. I guess people were bored by it, but I don't know how, because it's like a real like epic adventure, and like the classic meaning of those words. Like it has a real kind of 1950s, 1960s epic approach to the storytelling. Like it encompasses so much time and so much space, and with such a unique, storytelling structure of going through someone's life where they age, as a old gross baby. I'm always very confused by the end. Like, does he shrink? I guess he shrinks again, but is he still like the size of an old man but looks like a baby? Which I need to see. I need the Fincher cut of this. I don't think they had an answer, so they didn't show it. But I think that the approach to time, not just as an actual storytelling structure, but as a thematical connective piece to it as well, is one of the most moving things that Fincher's ever came. It's so out of the ordinary for what he normally touches. I think it's a very beautiful film. I think especially it hits its stride perfectly in the middle of when the romance of Cate Blanchett and Brad Pitt, who is my favorite actor, so this is part of it too, meet in the middle. It's just like so lovely and sexy and beautiful, and there's the best scene of the butterfly effect theory that has ever been done, that made it a lot more poetic than usually that can be done for me. But also just like watching people age backwards, it's great. It's fun to make jokes about. This movie's fucking brilliant. I don't know. People need to appreciate it. We're going to do a 3-hour live commentary one year. I beat Lucas in the Oscars. It'll happen.
So I won't ask you because I'm assuming it'll be on the list, but I'm really curious what you think the better Fincher movie is.
Well, people who pay attention to the show would already know.
It's a Social Network.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of crazy to say this is his second best. Yeah, that 7's not good. But whatever. Okay, I got it all here.
Me saying 7 is bad should not affect my list, because 7 was not talked about on my list. I should be judged based solely on my list.
No, he should be based on that statement.
Anything you say can and will be held against you. I read you the Miranda rights before we started. But no, I do like this movie though. I want to talk about the effects, like the aging or de-aging or whatever effects you call them. Like they're really good, especially for this time this movie came out. Like there are movies that try to do stuff like this now, and it doesn't look as good as this movie does. This is the effects of this of him, especially when he's like young and or old, like an old child, are great. And the way they age him slowly, just like the different looks, are really, really well done. Yeah, the relationship between him and Cate Blanchett's character, I like movies like that where you have like those like really like beautiful relationships that are doomed and aren't going to last, and like they just have those moments together, and they do that really well in this movie. And just I said in my review, my Letterboxd review, it's basically Magic Forrest Gump. It's like just like this guy going from situation to situation and like experiencing different things, and there's so many different the part with Tilda Swinton, I really like that part. There's so many it's almost episodic the way it does with that relationship weaving its way through. So it's well done. Top 2 Fincher, I'm not going to agree with that. Top, I don't know, but yeah, that's kind of crazy. But everybody else on Benjamin Button.
I haven't seen it since it came out in theaters 13 years ago, so I remember literally like nothing about it, and I don't even remember if I liked it. But I was like 12, so I might have liked it, but I can't say anything about it.
Yeah, this movie really is Forrest Gump. I mean, there's actually a video I put a link in the YouTube. It compares the two. It's quite funny how similar they are. For me though, Fincher doesn't make bad films, but this is probably my least favorite of all his films. I mean, it's okay. It's definitely overlong. It's definitely a little boring. I think some of the effects are actually kind of badly done, but it's all right. It's just not one of my favorite Finchers.
The part that will always hold up to me is my grandmother going to see this film, because my grandfather brought her to this film, and her rant when we saw her the next time about the Curious Case of Benjamin Button is still one of, I wish I would have recorded it. It makes that movie so much better for me. I think the overall movie's boring, but she just quoted that I got struck by lightning 7 times. No one gives a fuck. No one cares. No one cares. Like, just went on a rant. She hates that. Hated this movie till the day she died. But yeah, best Fincher. I think that's absolutely insane. I think that's one of the second best Fincher. Second best Fincher. I think that's freaking insane. I think maybe 6, maybe 5, but no way. Yeah, it's probably the bottom, to be honest. Maybe it's higher than The Game.
Or Alien 3.
Yeah,
No.
Okay.
I'll take Alien 3 over this.
Alien 3, The Game, Benjamin Button, right there. We'll put it right there.
Yeah, you all can live in a world of like evil and sin and murder. Now live in a world of romance.
Yeah, go
and,
eat your marmalade.
Circumstance.
You watched You a Taxi Driver. You a Taxi Driver. Please don't tell us
what a
that
beautiful
we're
story about love and friendship. It's a great friendship central to The Taxi Driver.
I want to headbutt you in the face.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of this episode. And if I seem distracted, like the last part there, it's because I'm sitting here trying to figure out how to score this. I'm like literally like trying to invent new types of math to determine who, because it was so close.
Kurt, I'll help you. Believe me, I've given out free wins before too, just to let the real winner win at the end. So if you need to give it to somebody to boost their confidence, go for it. I'll take the
I'm not giving anything free here. No. This is nothing free here. This is nobody. There are very few bad picks tonight. Everybody is like it comes down to like 2 or 3 movies between the 4 of you.
Remember, I gave Koho a win that one time. That was fucking bullshit. We all know that.
Oh man, I gotta start going by who has stuff too high, because even if it's good, I gotta look at what's too high, or too low.
Seems like how that, you know. Oh ace in the hole. Ace in the hole.
Hold on. That's
I had an ace bit planned for Benny Button and I forgot it. I was going to do a callback.
Well, you forgot. You didn't do it.
I got to add pocket aces.
Kirk knows that for me, The Godfather is appropriately placed. You go based on the person, right?
Yeah, when you thought you had double aces and you just pulled 7 2s offsuit, it's going to be a rough one at the table.
I do got to give it to Ethan, though, barely. Because he did have Die Hard, Godfather, Day the Earth Stood Still, Being John Malkovich, really like Gremlins 2. I do appreciate it, even if it's not a great movie. I do appreciate it. So
Marty and Max, Mary and Max. So you want a depressing movie? Yeah.
Cody is a very. If I could do, am I allowed to do ties? Is there anything against ties? Okay,
you can do whatever you like.
Ethan and Cody tie for first place.
No, come on, bullshit.
No, because if I would have known, you guys are tied. And I'm doing a tie for second place too, because I can't differentiate between Brian and Zach.
Because you can't let Brian not be last place.
You both had movies that I really like, and then you both had a couple stinkers on there. I don't want to put Zach just because of Freaks. Freaks keeps Zach on a 4th place because I want to reward Freaks. But other than like some kind of wonderful and Top Gun, Brian's list was solid. Other than like Muppets Christmas Carol and maybe Paddington 2, Zach's list was solid. Everybody did. You guys are too good at this. You guys start putting some crappy movies on here for me to complain about.
I want to say, I think I'm trying to set a record here. I'm 4 weeks straight now, and not a single one of my picks has been yikes. Not since like '98. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah, we did have a lot. Ethan got yikes a lot tonight, so he'll be talking a lot here coming up soon. But yeah. Thanks for watching almost 3 hours tonight. Thanks for everybody who stuck around the chat. It was fun. Thank you guys, and we'll see you next week.
You're
not going to intimidate me. I'm entitled to my opinion.
drunk, get angry. Come on, break the lousy cup. Ow! I hurt my arm.
And not expect everybody.
I'm going there soon, you know.
Is that so? Where are you going?
Uruguay.
Well, you go Uruguay and I'll go mine.